Chapter 2072. When Xiaohua's figure disappeared, the middle stage Foundation Establishment city guard opened his mouth and said, "Captain Yu, why did you let Xiaohua go just like that?" He had killed 4 Foundation Establishment cultivators in this place. If the masters of these 4 cultivators come, what will happen to our Haoming city? Yu Chen coldly glanced at the city guard and asked, "How do you know there were 4 Foundation Establishment cultivators?" A trace of pride flashed in the city guard's eyes, and he said with a smile, "If there were 4 Qi refinement cultivators, how could Xiaohua set up a formation to kill them? It must be because he couldn't defeat them, so he thought of using a formation. Captain, didn't you see him easily take out the formation plate and other things?" "Yangming," Yu Chen sighed and said, "your cultivation is good, and you have some brains, but do you know why you've always been under Shang Qinghe? That's because Shang Qinghe has the talent to flatter, not because of me," Yangming blurted out. Obviously, he already had resentment in his heart. If Shang Qinghe was here, he definitely wouldn't question this old man's decision. Yu Chen sneered and waved his hand. "Let's go. We'll return to the city." But Yangming glanced at several places that were burned by Xiaohua and hesitated to speak. "None of you saw what happened today. If this old man sees it and divulges it, don't blame this old man for being impolite." Yu Chen said coldly, "This old man doesn't dare." Everyone was terrified and bowed. "Also, this place, no one is to check it out. After 10 days, come back and inspect it." Yu Chen's gaze swept across the valley, and he gave another order and flew up. Yu Chen and the others disappeared. After a long time, Xiaohua's figure suddenly appeared on the foothills of a mountain. He looked in the direction of Haoming City and said to himself, "This Yu Chen, what's going on? Why is he so partial to this young master? What is he afraid of? This young master really doesn't understand." Immediately, Xiaohua flew to the place where he killed Yan Yu and carefully looked for a long time. He didn't find any flaws, so he flew away again. In the distance, Yangming was carefully accompanying Yu Chen, quietly listening to Yu Chen's reprimand. "Although I didn't know that it was Xiaohua who set the trap to kill the 4 Foundation Establishment cultivators, Elder Yu," Yangming whispered. "It seems I can't tell that there are 4 Foundation Establishment cultivators. Perhaps there were aura refining disciples as well? Or perhaps there is only 1 Foundation Establishment disciple." Yu Chen glanced at Yangming and smiled. "How do you know there are 4 cultivators? Or perhaps 5 or 6 cultivators?" "That can't be. Xiaohua only has 4 storage bags in his hands. It should be 4 cultivators," Yangming replied without hesitation. "Since you know that there are 4 storage bags, didn't you notice the quality of the 4 storage bags?" Yu Chen said with a smile. This Yangming was dumbfounded. How could he notice so many details? It's easy to be a Foundation Establishment middle stage cultivator, as long as you have enough cultivation. Yu Chen sighed and said, "But if you want to be a Haoming city guard captain, you have to have enough cultivation and not know how to observe details. You don't know how to observe people's expressions. You don't know how to. Alas, left and right, there are many things you need to know." Yu Chen waved his hand. "Although I can't carefully examine the quality of these 4 storage bags, I can see that they are definitely not aura refining cultivators. Therefore, the owners of these 4 storage bags must be Foundation Establishment cultivators." "And I understand." Yangming's face showed a look of admiration. "Moreover, think about it. If Xiaohua used a formation to set up an ambush and wanted to kill 4 Foundation Establishment cultivators, do you think these 4 Foundation Establishment cultivators would be Foundation Establishment early stage?" Yu Chen said again, "Don't forget, Xiaohua just came into contact with this old man's spiritual pressure. His spiritual pressure was beyond this old man's expectations. It was actually Foundation Establishment middle stage." "Ah, Foundation Establishment middle stage?" Yangming was shocked. This Xiaohua actually knows how to conceal his cultivation? This old man only saw that his cultivation was Foundation Establishment early stage. And this should be a secret cultivation concealment technique passed down in the Imperial Thunder sect. Yu Chen's eyes flickered, and he said, "A Foundation Establishment middle stage used a formation to set up an ambush. Among the 4 cultivators with similar cultivation, 2 of them should be foundation establishment middle stage. Even 4 of them should be foundation establishment middle stage. With the strength of one person and the power of a formation, he actually killed 4 foundation establishment middle stage cultivators. Yang Ming was shocked. This Xiaohua's strength, isn't it comparable to the edge of foundation establishment late stage? This old man doesn't know what kind of formation Xiaohua set up, and I can't judge Xiaohua's true strength. Yu Chen shook his head. However, if I say that he has the strength of foundation establishment late stage, I think I overestimated him. However, seeing that he removed the formation in front of this old man, and wasn't afraid of this old man's reproach, this old man believes that he must have some kind of backup plan. The shock on Yang Ming's face was difficult to hide, and he once again said with admiration, "This old man will never forget Captain's teachings. This old man really didn't think so much." Hee hee, Yu Chen laughed. It's also a great advantage for you to concentrate on cultivation. As long as you improve your cultivation, these insignificant things are nothing. Yes, this old man knows. This old man will follow Captain's lead. Yang Ming saluted and smiled apologetically. Just based on Captain's approachability, I think Xiaohua will be grateful to Captain's actions in his heart. If there is anything in the future, it will also be a small help. Hee, I hope so. Yu Chen nodded and said, although my Haoming city is powerful, it's nothing in the eyes of the Imperial Thunder Sect. As a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect, Xiaohua naturally won't put this old man in his eyes. However, he has these things that can't be considered as blackmail in my eyes. Under this old man's blind friendship, he will definitely. Hearing Yu Chen say something that can't be considered as evidence, it didn't mean that Yu Chen had finished speaking. Yang Ming suddenly realized something and even stuttered a little as he said, Captain, you mean that the 4 people that Xiaohua killed shook? Yu Chen's face changed and he shook his head and said, I didn't say anything. This Yu's divine sense also didn't see which sect the 4 people Xiaohua killed were from. Yes, this old man understands. Yang Ming's face also tightened, and he said hurriedly. But immediately, Yang Ming's eyes turned again, and he whispered, Old Yu, we all believe that Xiaohua set up a formation to kill the 4 cultivators. But what if it is as Xiaohua said? The 4 cultivators set up a formation to ambush Xiaohua. Hee, if Xiaohua has such strength, he can still kill the 4 foundation establishment cultivators under the formation, and not let any of the 4 cultivators escape. Yu Chen sneered. Then Xiaohua is not Xiaohua, he should be a golden core cultivator. Yes, this old man understands, Yang Ming smiled apologetically. If Xiaohua has such strength, Captain's friendship is even more valuable. If he has the cultivation of a golden core cultivator, can we still escape from his hands? Yu Chen snorted coldly. I'm afraid that we will be the first to leave, right? However, speaking of this, Yu Chen's heart moved. He hesitated for a moment, and sent a voice transmission to Yang Ming. No way. After listening to Yu Chen's voice transmission, Yang Ming's face showed horror. Let's go and take a look first. Yu Chen ordered. Just based on a few words just now, this old man can't really befriend Xiaohua. If I can find something, it can also be useful to this old man. A disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. A cultivator who can easily kill the same level, no matter how much it costs. We should befriend him. Yes, this old man understands. Yang Ming cupped his hands and prepared to leave. Remember, be secretive. Don't let Xiaohua find out anything. Yu Chen said worriedly. This old man understands, Yang Ming nodded and said. This old man can still do this well. And, after Yang Ming flew away, Yu Chen put his hands behind his back, looked into the distance and sighed in his heart. Xiaohua, this old man is humble to befriend you. Don't let this old man down. How could Xiaohua think that killing Yan Yu would cause Yu Chen to befriend him? At this time, Xiaohua was sitting cross-legged on the futon, holding the scissor-like magic weapon in his hand. He immersed his divine thought into a jade slip, and his face showed joy. Haha, soaring dragon scissors. Xiaohua laughed out loud, opened his eyes and looked at the magic weapon with joy. This young master's dream execution is now breeding the primordial spirit, so it can't be used for the time being. This cloud-suppressing seal is indeed powerful. but I always feel that it's not powerful enough. Now that I have obtained such a powerful magic weapon, how can I not be happy?" Then, Xiaohua's eyes flashed with a sharp color, and he sneered. "Yinyu Liangyu, and the others are just clowns. They say that they are avenging their nephew, but their goal is this young master's storage bag. Now it's good that they went for wool and came back shorn. Instead, they gave this young master a magic weapon. Unfortunately, this young master's hands and feet are a little slow. It actually attracted Yu Chun, who used pressure to force out this young master's true cultivation. This secret method of stealing the sky and swapping the sun seems to be not perfect. But what's wrong with knowing it?" Xiaohua thought proudly. "It's just a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator. If it weren't for the captain of the city guards of Haoming City, this young master wouldn't have any scruples. As long as it has any rebellious thoughts, this young master will kill it all the same." Then, Xiaohua flicked his hand, and a spell seal hit the half of the soaring dragon scissors. The soaring dragon scissors suddenly flashed, and a golden light burst out like the sun after the clouds opened, illuminating the entire cave. Great, seeing the soaring dragon scissors in such a strange state, which was completely different from when Liangyu used it, Xiaohua's face showed joy. He cheered, and the spell seals in his hand continued to hit out. Along with Xiaohua's sacrificial refining, the flood dragon on the soaring dragon scissors gradually appeared until it was 1 foot long. Then, like a dragon soaring to the 9 heavens, it flew in the cave and circled around Xiaohua. After several hours, even with Xiaohua's cultivation, he was still somewhat dispirited. Xiaohua opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood on the soaring dragon scissors. A blood-like cold light flashed, and the originally closed eyes of the soaring flood dragon suddenly opened. That cold light actually shot out from the flood dragon's eyes. Moreover, the flood dragon's figure rapidly shrank, and quickly returned to the original appearance of the soaring dragon scissors, floating in front of Xiaohua's eyes. Chapter 2073. The Tengjiao shears was still the original Tengjiao shears, but the eyes on the handle had already opened. Faintly, there was an uncontrollable sharpness that seemed to want to stand out from the Tengjiao shears. Xiaohua opened his mouth, and the Tengjiao shears flew into his mouth, and was sent into his Buddhist heart. He secretly smiled and said, "Looks like this young master got another treasure." This Tengjiao shears was accidentally obtained by Liangyu, not a magic treasure taught by Sun Yan. Moreover, the Tengjiao shears is divided into yin and yang sides. Liangyu only got the incomplete yang side. Just with this half of the Tengjiao shears, this young master already feels like a tiger that has grown wings. It is even more powerful than the dream-killing flying sword. When I get the other half of the Tengjiao shears in the future, with the combination of yin and yang, I'm afraid that even a middle-stage gold core cultivator would be killed by this young master, right? Xiaolang at this moment, Xue Xue's exclamation came from outside. Xiaohua didn't have time to look at the other storage pouches. He swept it with his divine sense, and his face also showed panic. He responded, "Wife, don't worry." As Xiaohua's figure flew out, he saw that Xue Xue was already standing in front of the pill furnace, looking at the constantly fluctuating furnace with some panic. Boom. It seemed like the lid of the furnace was about to be lifted. The phantoms of 2 male and female lightning beasts flew out from the pill furnace, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they floated above the pill furnace. The 2 lightning beast phantoms were about 1 foot tall. As soon as they appeared, it was as if they had seen an irreconcilable enemy. They flapped their wings and pounced on each other. Quick! Xiaohua didn't have time to watch the 2 phantoms fight. He formed hand seals and hit the pill furnace one after another. The 3-legged vermilion bird phoenix pattern furnace was originally swaying left and right in the midst of the fight between the phantoms, and it was about to collapse. As Xiaohua's hand seals were inserted, it slowly stabilized. Seeing that the pill furnace was stable, Xiaohua flicked his hand, and several samadhi true fire flew out and fell into the pill furnace. Shwa! Several brilliant lights flew out from the cauldron, and landed on the 2 Thunder Beast phantoms. The Thunder Beast phantoms suddenly expanded and became 2 feet tall. As the Lightning Beast's silhouette grew bigger, the heaven and earth spirit energy within the cave was absorbed by the silhouette, causing the sound of wind to fall into it. All right, at this moment, Xiaohua's expression was somewhat relaxed. He knew that right now was the time when the yin and yang of the male and female lightning beast's blood fused. It was the most crucial moment. Countless Shui family ancestors had failed to refine the Ling Lei Dan at this moment. Therefore, he didn't dare to be careless. He released his spiritual will and observed carefully. The two Thunder Beast phantoms were evenly matched, and neither could do anything to the other. After fighting for several breaths, they suddenly raised their heads at the same time, pounded their chests with their fists, and suddenly rushed towards each other. Right now, joy appeared on Xiaohua's face. He stretched out his left arm and grabbed at the air with his 5 fingers. It was as if he was grabbing something from the pill furnace. As Xiaohua raised his arm, he spat out a mouthful of true essence, and a black and white net flew out from the pill furnace. One on the left and one on the right. It covered the male and female lightning beast phantoms. Combined, Xiaohua uttered an incantation, and his hands continuously formed seals. The two phantoms originally collided with each other, and under the adhesion of the black and white net, they gradually merged into one. Although this process only took a few breaths, the more the two phantoms merged, the greater the repulsive force between them. Separating and merging caused Xiaohua to consume a lot of magic power. Combine, Xiaohua shouted once again, and a wisp of faint scarlet-red spirit fire suddenly flew out. It circled around the illusory figure, and all of the repulsive force from before disappeared. With a loud bang, the entire alchemy furnace shook violently, and the two illusory figures combined together as they wished, and were absorbed into the alchemy furnace. Granny, Xiaohua's figure slightly swayed in midair. He seemed to be somewhat lacking in magic power. Looking at the 3-legged vermilion bird phoenix pattern furnace that was as quiet as a virgin, he couldn't help but groan. What kind of cultivator can refine this Ling Lei Dan so easily? This young master's alchemy technique is completely different from Xiaoyu continent, and my magic power is also close to gold core. Why can't I refine this thing easily? No wonder Shue's heart is tangled. How could her ancestor refine this Ling Lei Dan? Husband, seeing Xiaohua flying in the air and the pill furnace returning to its calm state, Shui in the distance shouted in a low voice, "Is there a mistake?" Hee. Xiaohua turned his head and said with a slight smile, "In your husband's hands, how could there be the slightest mistake? Wife, don't worry. In another 10 days, this Ling Lei Dan will be successfully refined, and it will also be the day you build your foundation." Really? Shue's face showed surprise, and she couldn't help but offer her cherry lips considerately to Xiaohua. The two of them were affectionate for a moment, and Shui showed hesitation again and said in a low voice, "Husband, the cultivation method you taught me, I'm still a little unfamiliar with it. These meridians still haven't expanded. I think it's better not to take the Ling Lei Dan first. It won't be too late to take it when I feel confident, right?" Xiaohua thought for a moment and said with a smile, "It's all up to you. Your husband will accompany you. Whether you build your foundation in Haoming City today, or in the Sea of Heaven tomorrow, your husband will stand guard for you." "Thank you, husband," Shui chuckled, her face full of happiness. At this moment, Xiaohua's brows slightly wrinkled again, and he swept his divine sense outside the abode. Why is this guy here? Xiaohua saw the person outside the abode, and he couldn't help but be surprised. "Husband? Who is it? Could it be the fire Qilin again?" Shui saw Xiaohua's unkind expression, and asked in a low voice. "It's not the fire Qilin," Xiaohua shook his head and said. "It's Haoming City's city guard Captain Yu Chun." Shui was also puzzled, but she looked at Xiaohua and said with a smile, "I'm going to cultivate by myself. You can send him away yourself." After saying that, without waiting for Xiaohua to answer, she walked to a corner, sat cross-legged, and closed her eyes to comprehend. Xiaohua knew that Shui didn't want to ask more about him, so he smiled slightly, went out of the pill room, opened all the restrictions, and went outside the abode. On the side of the abode, Yu Chen stood there casually without any city guards. Xiaohua opened the abode and said with a smile, "Captain Yu, I haven't seen you for a few days again. May I know what business you have in my abode today?" Yu Chen released his divine sense. Seeing that there were no other cultivators around, he cupped his hands and said, I didn't come to your abode for a special visit. I wonder if fellow Taoist Xiao can let me in for a chat? Ha! Hearing that Yu Chen actually said that he had nothing to do and wanted to enter the abode to talk, Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. His mind turned quickly, guessing Yu Chen's intention. I wonder if he saw through the matter of me killing Yen Yu. Fellow Taoist Xiao, don't misunderstand. Seeing Xiao Hua hesitate, how could Yu Chen not know what Xiao Hua was thinking? He hurriedly said, I just saw fellow Taoist Xiao's profound magic power, and wanted to make friends with you. So I came to talk to fellow Taoist Xiao. Chapter 2074. Profound magic power? You want to make friends with him? Xiao Hua was even more stunned. Ever since he started cultivating, all the cultivators he met were either using him or forcing him to do things. How could he make friends with someone? Most of the people he had some friendship with were related to him. Someone unrelated to him like Yu Chen. This was the first time. However, Xiao Hua still cupped his hands and smiled. My cultivation is shallow. I've never met a fellow Taoist like fellow Taoist you. Please forgive me. Hee, it's fine. Yu Chen was comforted when he heard Xiao Hua call him fellow Taoist you. Aren't you going to invite me in? Ha ha ha, fellow Taoist you please. Xiao Hua stepped aside and invited Yu Chen into the cave. Yu Chen was only at the late stage of foundation establishment. Xiao Hua had already killed late-stage foundation establishment cultivators when he was at the peak of qi refinement. He wasn't afraid of Yu Chen having any other thoughts. Where's fellow Taoist Shui? Yu Chen entered the cave and didn't release his divine sense. Fellow Taoist Yu, please sit. Xiao Hua invited Yu Chen to sit and replied. Junior sister is in seclusion. She's looking for a chance to reach foundation establishment. She can't come out to meet you. Not bad, Yu Chen sighed. He watched Xiao Hua take out some spirit fruits from his space. He casually picked one and ate while saying, You disciples of large sects have an advantage. Your cultivation is guaranteed. You can't compare to us wild fox cultivators. Look, your junior sister is about to reach foundation establishment. As her senior brother, you're accompanying her from thousands of miles away. I'm really envious. Hee, fellow Taoist you, please don't laugh at me. Xiao Hua took out some spirit wine and smiled. I got this from somewhere else. I don't know where it came from. Fellow Taoist you, please have a taste. It's not from your Imperial Thunder sect? Yu Chen was stunned. However, he still picked up the wine cup and took a sip. I've drunk this spirit wine before. It seems to be Tianmen Mountain's Huang family's clear wine. Xiao Hua thought for a moment, then said with a smile. This Xiao doesn't like spirit wine, but this thing seems to be. The two of them then chatted for a while. Yu Chen patted his storage bag and took out a jade slip. He handed it to Xiao Hua and said, Fellow Taoist Xiao, I ate your spirit fruit and drank your spirit wine. This is a little bit of this old man's sincerity. I hope fellow Taoist Xiao can accept it. Oh, what is this? Xiao Hua looked at the jade strip and asked somewhat strangely. Yu Chen smiled and said, Won't fellow Taoist Xiao know if you take a look? When Xiao Hua took the jade slip and immersed his divine sense into it, he couldn't help but reveal a look of surprise. Moreover, his eyes flashed with a trace of fierceness. Yu Chen didn't panic at all and said with a smile, This old man wants to be on good terms with fellow Taoist Xiao, so I naturally have to understand fellow Taoist Xiao. I just so happen to be the captain of Haoming City's city guards. Some things might be difficult for others, but it's as easy as flipping my palm for me. However, fellow Taoist Xiao, don't worry, this old man knows the severity of the matter. This old man didn't inquire about the rogue cultivator, who sold the body refinement cultivation method. Moreover, according to this old man's knowledge, it's impossible for this old man to inquire about the situation. Xiao Hua's eyes turned slightly, and he returned the jade slip to Yu Chen and said with a smile, Fellow Taoist use painstaking efforts. This Xiao appreciates. However, this isn't what this Xiao needs. Doesn't fellow Taoist Xiao need a body refinement cultivation method? Yu Chen took the jade slip and said, This cultivation method is the best cultivation method in my Haoming City's Jade Field Paradise. Fellow Taoist Yu, Xiaohua pondered for a moment and said with a smile, since fellow Taoist Yu has such intentions, then this Xiao won't hide it from fellow Taoist. This Xiao doesn't need a body refinement cultivation method, but a bone tempering cultivation method. Bone tempering? When Yu Chen heard this, his face revealed a disappointed expression. He put away the jade slip and said resentfully, from what this old man has seen, I really haven't heard of any bone tempering cultivation method. This old man is somewhat ignorant and inexperienced. Bone tempering cultivation methods are rare in the first place. Xiaohua said with a smile. This Xiao only has a divine ability that requires the assistance of this cultivation method. Otherwise, this Xiao absolutely wouldn't have thought of it. It's normal that fellow Taoist Yu doesn't know about it. Okay, Yu Chen said with a smile. Since I know that fellow Taoist Xiao needs a bone tempering cultivation method, this you will help fellow Taoist Xiao look for it in Haoming City. Ha ha ha, Xiaohua was overjoyed when he heard this. He cupped his hands and said, thank you for your kindness, fellow Taoist Yu. In fact, there's no need to be restricted to Haoming City. As long as there's news of bone tempering cultivation methods in Xiaoyu continent, this Xiao will be endlessly grateful. This Yu understands. Yu Chen nodded. Immediately, Xiaohua's heart moved again. He clapped his hands, took out the soaring dragon shears and asked, fellow Taoist Yu, have you seen this thing before? Yu Chen didn't take it. He only scanned it with his divine sense and shook his head, saying, this Yu hasn't seen it before. However, seeing that this magic treasure is incomplete, fellow Taoist Xiao means, yes, fellow Taoist Yu, please pay attention. If there's news of this magic treasure, please inform this Xiao. Xiaohua said with a smile. Okay, fellow Taoist Xiao, please rest assured. This Yu will help you pay attention. When Yu Chen saw that Xiaohua entrusted this matter to him without any hesitation, he was overjoyed. He knew that this trip wasn't in vain. He made friends with a cultivator with unlimited potential, so he immediately patted his chest and said with a smile. Yes, fellow Taoist Yu, Xiaohua thought. He waved his hand, took out a few jade boxes, and placed them in front of Yu Chen. He said with a smile, fellow Taoist Yu came prepared, which made this Xiao a little nervous. This Xiao prepared these spiritual herbs for future use. Today, I'll give them to fellow Taoist Yu as a gift for our first meeting. When Yu Chen saw that Xiaohua was so generous, he was overjoyed. He waved his hand and said, fellow Taoist Xiao, this Yu is happy to see you. How could I covet your Imperial Thunder Sect's spiritual herbs? Fellow Taoist's way of doing things makes this Yu a little uneasy. Fellow Taoist Xiao, please take these things back. Haha, this is this Xiao's goodwill. Fellow Taoist Yu, don't be in a hurry to refuse. Xiaohua said with a smile. Let's take a look first and see if it's beneficial to your cultivation. If it's not useful, then it won't be too late to refuse. Okay, Yu Chen didn't mind. He didn't think that a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator could take out spiritual herbs that could move his heart. Moreover, Haoming City was a city of auctions. What kind of spiritual herbs hadn't he seen before? However, in order to not let Xiaohua lose face, Yu Chen still decided to take a look. Whether or not they were useful to him, he would take them back first. However, when Yu Chen opened a jade box and saw the spiritual herbs inside, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. His eyes emitted a trace of divine light. He looked around and said in a low voice, Xiao. Fellow Taoist Xiao, these spiritual herbs, I'm afraid they're over 10,000 years old. When he saw Xiaohua's smiling expression, he hurriedly opened the other jade boxes. After taking a look, the joy on his face became even stronger. He looked at Xiaohua with a complicated gaze. With a wave of his hand, he put away the jade boxes into his storage pouch. He sighed and said, I won't say anything else. Fellow Taoist Xiao is really considerate. These spiritual herbs are exactly what I need. If I were to be unreasonable, I would have come here in vain today. Great, Xiaohua also clapped his hands and said with a smile, Fellow Taoist, you have such a magnanimous heart. I'm relieved. Yu Chen thought for a moment and said, Fellow Taoist Xiao, I'm still a bit uneasy after taking your spiritual herbs. The matter you mentioned just now is a bit tricky. I'm afraid it might not be effective in a short time. Do you have any other difficult matters? If I can help you, please don't hesitate to tell me. Hearing this, Xiaohua's heart moved. He clapped his hands and took out a blank jade slip. He wrote some things on it and handed it to Yu Chen with a smile. I was just about to tell fellow Daoist Yu that these things are exactly what I need. Because I'm not familiar with the auction in Haoming City, I only participated in the auction for nascent soul cultivators and foundation establishment cultivators. I didn't come across these things. If it's convenient for fellow Daoist Yu, please help me gather them. I will be eternally grateful. Yu Chen took the jade slip, glanced at it, and said with a smile, so it's some materials for refining tools. They're not too rare. Fellow Daoist Xiao, you just have to wait for a day or two. Xiaohua was secretly delighted, but there was nothing special on his face. He cupped his hands and said, Thank you for your trouble, fellow Daoist. I'll give the spirit stones to fellow Daoist right away. No need, no need. Yu Chen hurriedly waved his hand. These materials don't require many spirit stones. Just take it as a gift from me to fellow Daoist Xiao. After discussing the matter, Yu Chen said a few more words to Xiaohua before leaving. After seeing Yu Chen off, Xiaohua secretly said, No wonder cultivators pay attention to communication. Although I knew a thing or two before, I never got any benefits because of it. It turns out that a person's strength is limited. Everyone has their own sphere of influence. If everyone interacts with each other, many difficult things may become easy. When Yu Chen saw that I was able to kill 4 cultivators of the same level, he wanted to make friends with me. Perhaps it would be beneficial to his cultivation in the future. And I can rely on Yu Chen's power to get information that I can't find. It's really 2 benefits in one fell swoop. It seems that completely concealing my cultivation is not a good thing. Occasionally letting others see my true strength and getting the respect and recognition of others is also beneficial to my cultivation in the future. Immediately, Xiaohua sat cross-legged again, and took out the storage bags of Yanyu, Liangyu, and the others. His divine sense swept through them, and he couldn't help but be surprised. Another 3 days later, Yu Chen came to visit as promised and gave a medium-sized storage bag to Xiaohua. Inside were the various materials that Xiaohua needed to repair the cloud-suppressing seal. Xiaohua thanked Yu Chen with a satisfied expression on his face. However, Yu Chen didn't get the slightest bit of information about the soaring dragon scissors and the bone-tempering technique. However, according to Yu Chen, he begged an elder who was on good terms with him in Haoming City to inquire about the information from the city lord, Daoist Master Yao Hong. He was afraid that there would be some news after 10 days. This was naturally still beyond Xiaohua's expectations. He didn't expect Yu Chen to actually spend so much capital and trouble Daoist Master Yao Hong for his matter. Moreover, the 81-day time limit for refining the High Thunder Pill would expire in 10 days. He naturally wouldn't leave Haoming City in a hurry. It was normal for him to wait for 10 days, regardless of whether there was any news or not. After seeing Yu Chen off, Xiaohua checked the materials used to refine the cloud-suppressing seal again, and looked at the refining technique to make sufficient preparations for refining the cloud-suppressing seal. Chapter 2075. Rise. Xiaohua's 10 fingers opened slightly, and his spiritual power faintly penetrated into the 3-legged vermilion bird phoenix pattern furnace. A clear sound came from inside the furnace, and it was actually the sound of a thunder beast roaring towards the sky. Moreover, a rich fragrance spread throughout the entire alchemy room. Shui stood far away in a corner of the alchemy room, and her eyes revealed endless admiration and pride. Looking at Xiaohua, who was about to condense the pill, there was a trace of uneasiness behind that joyful expression. Right at this time, Xiaohua chuckled and looked back at Shui. He formed a spell with both hands. The spell was very obscure, and the fluctuation of spiritual power was extremely strange. It was very different from the alchemy methods seen in the Xiaoyu continent. Fortunately, Shui didn't know alchemy at all, and there was no other strange expression in her eyes except for admiration. However, what puzzled Shui was that as Xiaohua formed a spell, the slightly vibrating alchemy furnace began to stabilize, and the hissing sound also became smaller. However, at the same time, the fragrance in the room also disappeared, as if it was restrained inside the alchemy furnace. This was very different from the alchemy techniques she had heard of. When Xiaohua waved his hand, a faint black and white brilliance flashed above the alchemy furnace, and Xiaohua's face was slightly surprised. Huh? This Ling Lei pill, can't it be pulled out? Xiaohua muttered in a low voice, and didn't dare to hesitate. He immediately waved his hand, and the flame under the alchemy furnace was immediately extinguished. He waved his hand, and a jade slip appeared in his hand, and he carefully read it. After a long time, Xiaohua put away the jade slip, but his brows didn't loosen. Husband, Shueshue saw this and asked in a low voice, "Is there a mistake?" Xiaohua smiled and said, "What mistake? It's just the process of refining the Ling Lei pill. It's a little different from what your husband knows. Your husband originally wanted to refine a few pills at once. Who knew that you could only refine one pill, which really makes your husband unhappy?" Hee, Shueshue covered her mouth and laughed. Husband is really greedy. This Ling Lei pill is a heaven-defying item. My Shui family's ancestors spent a lot of effort to refine one pill. And you want to refine a few pills at once? Is this a joke? This concubine will be satisfied with just one. Hee, Xiaohua's mouth curled into a sly smile. My wife's problem has been solved, but what about our children? Husband still wants to leave some benefits for them. Hee, Shueshue's face flushed red when she heard this. She giggled and said, "With an alchemist like you, whenever the children need it, you can just refine it." But within Shueshue's charming smile, there was still a trace of gloom, far from what others could see. Wife is right. Xiaohua exaggeratedly slaps his forehead. If there is one child, this husband will refine it once. If there are 10 children, this husband will refine it 10 times. It really isn't a big deal. Hee, not shy at all. Shueshue was abnormally shy, like a real young lady. After a short while, Shueshue asked again. That's right. Husband, is the soaring lightning pill done? That's fine. Xiaohua nodded and said. The pill is already done. Since you can't pull the pill, wait a moment, this husband will directly collect the pill. Good, Shueshue said with a faint smile. After refining the soaring lightning pill, this concubine will follow husband to QC. There should be enough time to comprehend that wonderful technique along the way. Xiaohua heard this and thought of another matter. To go to QC, one must pass through Ink Cloud Black Forest. Xiaohua was very clear about the dangers of Ink Cloud Black Forest. If there wasn't any special passage, it would be very difficult for Shueshue, who was a refiner, to pass through. At this moment, Xiaohua felt some movement outside the cave. He laughed in his heart. Good, whoever wants to come can come. This is a good opportunity to ask fellow Taoist Yu if he has any shortcuts. However, when he released his divine sense and saw the person outside the cave, his face showed displeasure. The person outside was the Fire Qilin of Ardent Fire Mountain. Wife, the Fire Qilin has come. I wonder what's the matter. Xiaohua said in a low voice. Shueshue nodded slightly and said, Husband, you can just send him away. No matter what, husband will make the decision. Okay, Xiaohua replied and went outside the cave. The Fire Qilin heard the noise and saw Xiaohua come out. Its gaze was still looking behind Xiaohua, but it was disappointed that Shueshue wasn't behind Xiaohua. Where is fellow Taoist Shui? The Fire Qilin asked. I will let fellow Taoists know, Xiaohua said neither arrogantly nor humbly. My wife is in closed-door cultivation and can't see guests. I wonder if fellow Taoist has something to say? Fellow Taoist Xiao, the Fire Qilin asked sincerely. This fire knows that you and Shueshue aren't dual cultivating, and this fire will be returning to Ardent Fire Mountain with grandfather today. This fire came today just to see fellow Taoist Shui. Fellow Taoist fire is leaving? Xiaohua was somewhat surprised and asked curiously. The auction just ended a few dozen days ago and the elders of Ardent Fire Mountain are returning. Yes, something strange happened in Ardent Fire Mountain. Grandfather has to hurry back. The Fire Qilin was somewhat absent-minded. It didn't care about the advice of the 3 elders of Ardent Fire Mountain and casually said the reason. Fellow Taoist Xiao, this fire just wants to see fellow Taoist Shui. It's fine even if we don't talk. Sorry, fellow Taoist fire, you should go back, Xiaohua said after pondering for a moment. But the fire Qilin was somewhat stubborn. It seemed as if it didn't understand the tactful words. It pushed Xiaohua and said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, you are only Shue's senior brother. Taking a step back, you can be considered a senior brother and sister with a closer relationship. Since you haven't dual cultivated this fire, however, when the fire Qilin spoke to this point, it stopped again because its hand was pushing Xiaohua's shoulder. Xiaohua did not retaliate. It only felt that Xiaohua was standing there like an iron wall, not moving in the slightest. Fellow Taoist Xiao, could it be that you want to force this fire to make a move? The fire Qilin sneered. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes. He didn't show any panic and said with a smile, "If fellow Taoist fire wants to give me pointers, this Xiao will accompany you at any time." Good, the fire Qilin was furious. It waved its hand and the surrounding world spirit energy began to condense, as if some powerful magical art was being cast. Wait, two voices sounded at the same time. They were the crisp voices of female cultivators. "Fellow Taoist Shui, you came out? I knew you would definitely come out." The fire Qilin didn't pay attention to the female voice behind it. It was pleasantly surprised as it looked behind Xiaohua and hurriedly said. Shui slowly walked out from behind Xiaohua. Her face was cold as she coldly walked to Xiaohua's side. She stretched out her hand and grabbed Xiaohua's arm. She said, "Senior Fire, this junior has already made it clear in the cave of the Ardent Fire Mountain that this junior will be Xiaohua's wife in this life. Even if we can't dual cultivate, even if we can't live and die together, even if this junior becomes a ghost, this junior's body will belong to Xiaohua. Senior Fire should extinguish those delusions and properly cultivate. In the future, when you meet a female cultivator to your liking, you can then dual cultivate." Chapter 2076. Shui. Fellow Taoist Shui. Fire Qilin saw that Shui seemed to be unable to complete his sentence. "What other thoughts do I have? I naturally know what you're thinking. I just want to see fellow Taoist Shui before leaving Haoming City. My blazing fire mountain is thousands of miles away from the Imperial Thunder Sect, but this is nothing. I can be considered to have cultivated successfully now. If I wholeheartedly want to see fellow Taoist, this distance is nothing. But how can this distance compare to the distance in my heart? Even if I'm facing fellow Taoist Shui now, I know that the distance in my heart is greater than the entire Dawn Rain continent. I can't surpass this distance even if I cultivate for a lifetime. I just want to see fellow Taoist Shui once. Just once." These words were said with deep feelings, and even Xiaohua was slightly moved. But Shui didn't wait for Fire Qilin to finish speaking and asked indifferently, "Since Junior has already come out, it can be considered as meeting Senior. Senior, is there anything else?" "No. Nothing else." Fire Qilin was like a stunned goose as he answered. "Well, since we've already met and Senior has nothing else, Junior will return." Shui glanced at Fire Hibiscus behind Fire Qilin and said, "Junior thanks Senior Hibiscus for taking care of me in the past." After speaking, she turned and left without waiting for Fire Hibiscus to speak. Fellow Taoist Xiao, Fire Hibiscus had an apologetic look on her face as she cupped her hands and said, "I didn't plan to come and bid farewell to fellow Taoist, but I saw cousin coming over and was afraid that something had happened, so I followed. Since there's nothing else, I'll return with cousin. I hope to see fellow Taoist Xiao again in the future. Well, I even hope that fellow Taoist Xiao and sister Shui can get married soon." "Thank you for your auspicious words." Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, "I can't send fellow Taoist off, please forgive me." "It's fine fellow Taoist, please return." Fire Hibiscus glanced at Fire Qilin who was in a daze and said with a bitter smile. Then, Xiaohua turned and returned, sealing the cave abode. Fire Qilin actually stood there in a daze for the time it took to burn an incense before leaving quietly. "Wife, why did you say those words just now? Truly inappropriate." Xiaohua watched the Fire Qilin leave and grumbled in a low voice. "Hee husband, if I don't say that, how can I make that Fire Qilin give up?" Shui laughed. "I'm just saying, why take it so seriously? I just don't feel good." Xiaohua shook his head. "Forget it, let's not talk about it anymore. The Linglei pill should be done, right?" Shui urged. "This concubine is looking forward to it." All right. Xiao Hua's expression was greatly refreshed when he heard Shui mention the Ling Lei pill. He said, I will keep the Ling Lei pill now. We should also prepare to leave Haoming City. In this Haoming City, it's really a little aggrieved. Under Shui's caress, Xiaohua once again entered the alchemy room. At this time, the alchemy room was very quiet. Occasionally, there would be a slight sound coming from the alchemy furnace, like the chirping of birds or the swimming of fish. Listening to this sound was like the sound of nature. Moreover, the entire alchemy room was restored to its previous aura. The rich fragrance had completely disappeared. If one smelled it carefully, perhaps one could smell a trace of it when one got close to the alchemy furnace. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over, and knew that it was the best time to collect the pill. Therefore, he signaled Shui to stay away from the alchemy furnace. He took a deep breath and mobilized the true essence in his body. Spiritual power surged into his fingers, and he slowly launched a series of alchemy techniques. The techniques hit the alchemy furnace. At first, there was no movement. After a while, the alchemy furnace emitted a faint brilliance. When Xiao Hua waved his hand, the top of the three-legged vermilion bird and phoenix pattern furnace opened. With a soft sound, a dazzling brilliance flashed. A cloud like the shadow of a thunder beast was born from the alchemy furnace, and there was a gray flash in the cloud. Collect, Xiao Hua scolded softly. A real shadow flashed in his hand, and he launched a series of alchemy techniques on the cloud. However, the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth was attracted by the techniques, and it actually formed small hurricanes around the cloud. These hurricanes rotated around the cloud layer and slowly absorbed the cloud. The shadow of the thunder beast also slowly shrunk, and was absorbed by the gray flash. With a paw sound, there seemed to be some lightning in the void, and it lingered around the already formed Ling Lei pill and entered it. Great! Seeing that the lightning disappeared with the sound, and a thumb-sized Ling Lei pill rotated slightly in the air, Xiao Hua laughed loudly. He knew that the Ling Lei pill was finally completed. With a wave of his hand, the Ling Lei pill fell into his hand. It seems to be different from what was recorded in the jade slip. Xiao Hua's gaze swept across the gray Ling Lei pill. His divine sense was also blocked by the surface of the Ling Lei pill, and he couldn't help but be a little surprised. However, in his heart, he faintly felt that this Ling Lei pill formula was the real Ling Lei pill. Husband, seeing Xiao Hua holding the pill in his hand, Shui's face was hard to suppress the joy, and she whispered, Is the Ling Lei pill completed? Yes, Xiao Hua waved his hand, and the Ling Lei pill flew to Shui, but he said, However, it is different from what was recorded in the jade slip. Oh. Sure enough, Shui received the Ling Lei pill, and with her eyes and divine sense, she nodded and said, According to what was recorded in the jade slip, the Ling Lei pill has a strange fragrance, and there will be phantoms of lightning beasts in the surroundings, and there will even be miniature lightning beasts inside the pill. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly, touched his nose and said, Yes, and the Ling Lei pill should be half the size of a fist, far bigger than this. The color is also a little wrong. Shui continued. It should be black and white threads intertwining. Speaking up to here, Shui realized something and quickly shut her mouth, put the Ling Lei pill into the jade bottle, and said with a smile, This is already not bad. Husband only looked at the jade slip and refined the Ling Lei pill without anyone's guidance. This wife doesn't know what to say. Xiao Hua didn't care about Shui's explanation, and after thinking for a while he said, This husband's pill refining method is different from what was recorded in the jade slip, or the pill refined is different. However, this husband believes that since it can be refined, this Ling Lei pill will definitely be useful. This wife doesn't doubt my husband. Shui pursed her lips and said with a smile, However, this wife will wait until later to take it. As you wish, Xiao Hua nodded. We will prepare to leave Bright Dawn City. Don't wait a few more days, Shui shook her head and said. The disciples of the Ardent Fire Mountain might still be nearby, and if we encounter them, we won't be able to do anything, as my wife says. Xiao Hua also didn't want to see the 3 elders of the Ardent Fire Mountain, so he nodded and agreed. On the 3rd day Yu Qin came, and just as he sat down he smiled and said to Xiao Hua, Fellow Taoist Xiao, this old man has failed you. Xiaohua originally saw the smile on Yu Chen's face and thought that there was some whereabouts of the bone tempering technique, but Yu Chen actually said this, and he couldn't help but feel surprised. However, Xiaohua smiled and said, "No matter, this thing is rare, and this Xiao didn't plan to make it easy. If fellow Taoist you found it so quickly, this Xiao would be puzzled again." Hee fellow Taoist Xiao. Yu Chen drank a mouthful of spiritual tea and said, "This old man has failed you because this old man didn't get any accurate information from the city lord." Ah. Xiaohua laughed and clapped his hands, saying, "So fellow Taoist you is joking with this Xiao?" Hee, my city lord is a nascent soul cultivator, and his knowledge is 10,000 times better than ours. Although he doesn't know the whereabouts of the bone tempering technique, he has heard some rumors. Yu Chen smiled proudly. According to him, this bone tempering technique was left behind from ancient times, and it has long disappeared from the Donrain continent. It should be around 1,000 years ago. He heard a senior occasionally mention that there was a record in the ancient records of a certain sect that there was an ancient race who refined their bodies and tempered their bones on the overseas Sunset Island. Sunset Island? Xiaohua said happily. Isn't that the exact location? Hee, this old man also had the same idea, Yu Chen said with a smile. But the Kueha Sea is huge, and there are very few overseas cultivators. There is no island named Sunset Island among the few known in Haoming City. Oh, this is not good, Xiaohua said with a frown. Yes, the waves in the Kueha Sea are stable, but the overseas area is full of monstrous waves, and the spiritual qi of heaven and earth is scarce. How can we find this so-called Sunset Island? Yu Chen echoed. I think fellow Taoist Xiao should make other plans. After thinking for a moment, Xiaohua shook his head and said, Forget it, I promised junior sister that I would accompany her to the Kueha Sea. Since I'm going, I'll go and find her. If I don't go, I will have an inner demon in my heart. Fellow Taoist Xiao wants to go to the Kueha Sea? Yu Chen frowned and asked, Fellow Taoist, don't forget that from Haoming City to the Kueha Sea, you have to pass through the Majiao Black Forest. After passing through the Majiao Black Forest, you have to cross the whole Ming country. Without a flying spiritual artifact, fellow Taoist Xiao and fellow Taoist Shui will encounter more than a little difficulty. Hee, isn't this just for experience? Xiaohua said with a smile. If not, how can junior sister Shui build her foundation? Well, okay, Yu Chen nodded and clapped his hands. He took out a jade slip and said, This is the map of the Kueha Sea that I found in the Sutra Pavilion in Haoming City. If fellow Taoist Xiao insists on going, then take it. Oh, thank you so much, fellow Taoist Yu. Xiaohua was even more surprised. He bowed and thanked Yu Chen and reached out to take it. Xiaohua didn't look at it carefully. He scanned it with his spiritual sense and put it into his space. Then he asked, Fellow Taoist Yu, you came at the right time. I want to ask if there is a secret path through the Majiao Black Forest in Haoming City. This Yu Chen was a little embarrassed. There are several secret paths in Haoming City. However, because of the Majiao Black Forest, these secret paths are all ineffective. We just found one recently, and it's not very stable. The danger inside is also unpredictable. That's good. Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, As long as there is a secret path, it will save me and junior sister Shui the trouble of going into the Majiao Black Forest. As he spoke, he clapped his hands and took out a storage bag. This secret path must belong to Haoming City. These spirit stones are for me to buy information, so I won't make things too difficult for you, fellow Taoist Yu. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Chapter 2077. While Yu Chen looked at the storage bag and reached out to take it, he nodded and said, This secret path is indeed a recent source of income in our Haoming City. It's specially managed by the elders, but I can't take it. As for the spiritual stones, I'll take them. There's more. Xiaohua waved his hand again, took out a jade bottle and handed it to Yu Chen. This is to thank you for the sea map. Please accept it. Yu Chen wanted to refuse, but thinking of the spiritual herbs last time, he hesitated a little and took it first. When he opened the jade bottle, he was a little moved. The elixir inside was exactly what he needed to condense elixirs. Alas, forget it, Yu Chen smiled bitterly. I didn't want to exchange the sea map for your elixir, but this elixir, in my eyes, the sea map is 100 times more precious than this Lingli pill. You don't have to be so polite. Xiaohua waved his hand and smiled. Yuchen didn't refuse anymore. He took the Lingli pill and said, "Fellow practitioner Xiao, there are many practitioners coming to our Haoming city to participate in the auction, including the practitioners of Ming country. Many of them came from the Mo Bao land. Now the secret path is ineffective. If they want to go back to Ming country, they have to take a long detour, or use the secret path in our Haoming city. Therefore, there are many practitioners who want to pass through the secret path. Our Haoming city has also collected a lot of spiritual stones to arrange for these practitioners to leave. I'll try my best to arrange for you to leave first, but I'm afraid that it will take half a year to make the arrangement now." "Ah, so long?" Xiaohua was stunned, but he thought for a moment and said with a smile, "It doesn't matter. Now that I'm in your territory, do I have any scruples?" "Okay." Yuchen nodded and got up. "It's not too late. I'll go back and arrange it. Fellow practitioner Xiao, you can cultivate first." After seeing Yuchen off, Xiaohua explained the matter to Shui and asked her to cultivate in the quiet room, while he himself went to the alchemy room. With a clap of his hand, he took out a storage pouch from the space and muttered to himself, "Since there's half a year of meditation time, it's exactly what I want." Yen Yu's storage pouch contains many medicinal pills and pill recipes used by Foundation establishment cultivators, and even some medicinal pills used by Golden Core cultivators. This young master will also take advantage of this time to take some medicinal pills and refine a few cauldrons of medicinal pills. Unfortunately, the Jade Slip has the pill formula for the Minghua pill, but it doesn't have the pill formula for the Elaine pill and the Huayuan pill. It's really too tight. Then, Xiaohua took out the clear flower pellet from his storage pouch and a drop of earth crystal Yao milk. He first poured it into his body, then put the clear flower pellet into his mouth. This was another rare opportunity for Xiaohua to cultivate. After the closed-door cultivation, Xiaohua carefully and stingily refined the earth crystal Yao milk, while taking some medicinal pills. After stabilizing his cultivation base at the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm, he slowly pushed his cultivation base to a higher level. At the same time, in his spare time, Xiaohua was still refining pills. After a few more failures, he successfully refined the clear flower pellet used by the middle stage of Foundation establishment. Looking at the clear flower pellet that didn't have any medicinal fragrance, Xiaohua bitterly smiled. This clear flower pellet had tortured him enough in the past. It was like a flying sword hanging over his head, ready to take his life at any time. But it was also this clear flower pellet that sent him to the Imperial Thunder sect, which led to all the things that happened afterwards. Otherwise, he wouldn't know where he would be cultivating now. Perhaps he would be abandoned by the heavens, a member of the Heavenly Demon sect. But now? The clear flower pellet that caused his meridians to burst was an ordinary medicinal pill that he used for cultivation. Moreover, one or two of them wouldn't have much of an effect. Thinking of the endless possibilities, Xiaohua faintly felt that karma was tangled up in a disorderly manner, like a messy ball of thread. Unconsciously, he understood. He put the clear flower pellet into his mouth, and his mind entered the space. The karma hand in the space faintly glowed. Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He quickly attached his mind to the karma hand and carefully comprehended it. After an unknown period of time, Xiaohua felt some movement outside the space. He withdrew his mind from the karma hand and opened his eyes. He saw Shui looking at him with a pair of big eyes. She didn't disturb him at all. "Husband, you came out of seclusion?" Shui's eyes flashed as she asked in a low voice. And Xiaohua smiled and said, "How long was your husband in seclusion?" Shui glanced at the cauldron beside Xiaohua and said with a smile, "Husband's cultivation is really amazing. You have been in seclusion for more than a year. Even the medicinal pills in the cauldron were ruined, and you didn't wake up." Io, Xiaohua slapped his forehead. When he was comprehending the karma path, the clear flower pellet was still on the cauldron. Who knew that a year would pass in the blink of an eye? How could the clear flower pellet not be ruined? What a pity for these spiritual herbs. Xiaohua looked at the cauldron that was still warm, and the cauldron that had already lost its medicinal fragrance, and said with regret, "Yes, it's these message talismans that are disturbing my comprehension." Xiaohua released his divine sense, and saw several crimson communication talismans outside the cauldron. Xiaohua understood that Yuchen must have come to visit him, and arranged for him to go to Ming country through Mo Zhao Black Forest. Seeing Xiaohua open the restriction and let the transmission talisman in, Shueshui wanted to say something but hesitated. She had seen Xiaohua's abnormal state when he was cultivating before, so she didn't dare to disturb his cultivation too much this time. However, Xiaohua's abnormal state this time was different from before. This time Shueshui couldn't help but watch with concern. What kind of abnormality was this? A multicolored thread emerged from the back of Xiaohua's head. It circled around the alchemy room, and immediately turned into countless threads. They passed through the alchemy furnace, passed through the alchemy liquid, passed through everything, and scattered outside. Then many more threads came back, passed through Xiaohua's body, and came out again. When Shueshui finished cultivating, she didn't see any movement from Xiaohua. When she came to the alchemy room, the multicolored threads had already turned into a huge cocoon of light, surrounding Xiaohua. How could this not shock Shueshui? Several transmission talismans were out of Xiaohua's expectations. In addition to Yuchen's, there was also one from a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect's Taoist Master Miyu. There wasn't much content in it, only that Taoist Master Miyu was leaving Haoming City to return to the Imperial Thunder Sect. If there were disciples who had finished their experiential learning, they could follow Taoist Master Miyu back to the sect. Xiaohua didn't care about this message. After all, it was already half a year ago. However, this message was a rule of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Any ordinary disciple who received this transmission talisman would definitely be full of glory and eagerly go to Taoist Master Miyu to register to return to the sect, because this was an excellent opportunity to get close to a nascent soul cultivator. Thinking about how Xiaohua could casually give Bai Fengliang a foundation establishment pill, then wouldn't a nascent soul cultivator be able to casually give foundation establishment and golden core cultivators different benefits? This was also because Taoist Master Miyu saw Xiaohua appear in the auction for nascent soul cultivators, so she ordered her disciple to send this transmission talisman. Otherwise, how could an early foundation establishment disciple like Xiaohua receive this transmission talisman? Alas, this opportunity was also lost by Xiaohua. Chapter 2078. Yuchen's messaging talisman was even simpler. He came several times, but Xiaohua didn't respond. He also understood that Xiaohua should be in seclusion, so he didn't disturb him. There were many cultivators going to Inkcloud Black Forest, so he could arrange things more freely if Xiaohua left later. Xiaohua looked at several messaging talismans, then sent out Yuchen's messaging talisman, and then asked Shueshui, "Wife, how's your cultivation method? If it's successful, I'll accompany you to Haoming City to build your foundation. Otherwise, I have an appointment with Captain Yu, so we have to set off for QC." Shueshui didn't hesitate at all and said with a smile, "I don't know why. I always have some lingering thoughts that this isn't the best time to build my foundation. Even the cultivation method you gave me has improved a little. I've already decided, so let's talk about it on the way." "It's up to you," Xiaohua said with a smile. "That cultivation method is beneficial to the meridians, so you'll have more confidence if you cultivate it for a few more years. Your foundation is different from mine. It's related to your life, so you have to be careful." Then, Xiaohua put away the pill furnace and other things, and Shueshui also put away the things she left in the cave. Not long after, Yuchen came to the cave. As soon as he saw Xiaohua, he looked up and down, but he couldn't find any clues. Xiaohua's cultivation was still in the early stage of foundation establishment. However, Yuchen still said with a smile, "Congratulations, fellow Taoist Xiao. You've been in seclusion for another year. Your cultivation must have improved a lot." Xiaohua didn't think so and waved his hand saying, No, I'm just a foundation establishment cultivator. How can I improve after a year of seclusion? I'm just relying on my leisure time here to stabilize the realm I just set foot in." Yuchen didn't ask anymore and turned his head saying, "Then fellow Taoist Xiao, Are you going to continue your seclusion? Or are you going to Inkcloud Black Forest? If you're in seclusion, you have to give me the spirit stones for this cave first. The spirit stones you paid in advance for this cave are already not enough. Ha ha ha, seeing Yuchen joking, Xiaohua laughed and said, fortunately, fellow Taoist Yu is in Haoming City, or I would have been kicked out of the cave long ago. Ha ha ha, Yuchen also laughed. When Yuchen sat down, Xiaohua told him his plan. Yuchen nodded and said, everything has been arranged by this old man. Tomorrow, there will be a group of cultivators passing through the Inkcloud Black Forest. 10 days later, there will be another group of cultivators. Whatever fellow Taoist Xiao thinks is possible. Oh, Xiaohua was slightly taken aback. Yuchen was even more surprised than Xiaohua. He said curiously, the Mo Zhao Black Forest is full of dangers, not to mention the Mo Sand and Mo Zhao. Even the rarely seen giant Mo Zhao in golden silk armor, who can appear at any time. If it is not a nascent soul realm senior, no one can say that they can pass through it safely. Even if there is a secret path, most Foundation establishment cultivators travel in groups. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. He scratched his head and said, please forgive me, Taoist Yu. This is the first time I've come to the Inkcloud Black Forest. I didn't know it was so strange. If fellow Taoist Xiao is alone, this old man will naturally tell you the location of the secret path. Yuchen said with a smile. But fellow Taoist Xiao also has a delicate junior sister. In this old man's opinion, you should go with others. I will listen to fellow Taoist Yu's instructions. Xiaohua had always been a person who went with the flow. Hearing Yuchen's advice, he naturally agreed casually. But then, Xiaohua's heart moved and he asked again, then, who are these two groups of cultivators? Yuchen said casually. This was not a secret. After all, these names were registered in Haoming City. Moreover, these names must be kept secret. When they set off, they must know each other's names. What? 10 days later. There will be disciples of Jinhua Mountain's Fu family passing through the Inkcloud Black Forest? Xiaohua did not care about the names of the first group of cultivators passing through the Inkcloud Black Forest, even if he seemed to have heard of the name of Blood Ray Island. Yes, it's the Jinhua Mountain's Fu family. Yuchen nodded and said, it seems to be an elder called Fu something. That's the 12th level of Qi refining. What? Fellow Taoist Xiao is on good terms with this Fu guy? How can we be on good terms? We just met a few times when our cultivation was low. Xiaohua said with a smile. He was not sure whether he knew this Fu or not. Oh, I see. Yuchen nodded and said, then with fellow Taoist Zhao's cultivation, you can take care of them. Take care of them? Xiaohua was slightly stunned, but he immediately understood that Yuchen should be talking about the Inkcloud Black Forest. Can fellow Taoist Zhao's name be announced to them? Yuchen said with a smile. Can it not be announced? Xiaohua asked. Yes, that's right. Yuchen nodded and said, there are two cultivators traveling with Jinhua Mountain's Fu family who requested to hide their names. Oh? Hearing this, Xiaohua looked at Yuchen's eyes and immediately understood. It turned out that the take care Yuchen was talking about was more important than this. That's good. Junior sister and I will also not reveal our names. When the time comes, we can just wear camouflage clothes. Xiaohua nodded and said. Good. Yuchen nodded and clapped his hand, taking out a jade slip and saying, inside is the location of the gathering 10 days later. Fellow Taoist Xiao, keep it well. When the time comes, my Haoming City's disciples will be responsible for sending you to the edge of the Inkcloud Black Forest. I won't be sending you off. I hope that the next time I see fellow Taoist Xiao will already have the same cultivation as me. Fellow Taoist Yu is joking. Xiaohua shook his head and said, it takes 30 years to go from early stage to mid-stage Foundation establishment, and 60 years to go from mid-stage to late stage. How long has it been since I came back from Ming country? How can I catch up with fellow Taoist Yu? Ha ha ha, Yuchen laughed. Without saying anything else, he drank a few cups of spirit tea and left. This senior Yu already knows that my husband's cultivation is at mid-stage Foundation establishment? Xue was somewhat surprised. After Yuchen left, she quietly asked, Yes, Xiaohua nodded slightly and said with a smile. If he didn't see my cultivation at mid-stage foundation establishment, how could he want to be on good terms with me? However, I really did get a lot from him. It seems that in the future, I'll have to make friends with cultivators of the same realm. 10 days later, somewhere in Haoming City, Xiaohua and Shueshui, dressed in camouflage, arrived in front of a dozen or so cultivators. The person in the lead was a city guard around the 11th layer of the aura refining realm. After Xiaohua handed the jade slip to the city guard looked at it and saluted very respectfully. Greetings, seniors. Yes. Xiaohua raised his hand and said, I'm not late, right? This group doesn't seem to be here yet? Senior, please no. The city guard said respectfully. The disciples of Mount Jinhua and the 2 seniors aren't here yet, but the others are. Senior, please wait a moment. When the time comes, I can immediately lead the seniors to Inkcloud Black Forest. All right. Xiaohua nodded and turned his head to the side, ignoring the city guard. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, about 5 or 6 aura refining cultivators quickly walked over. Xiaohua's eyes brightened. Sure enough, as Yu Chen said, the ones in the lead were the elders of Mount Jinhua. However, it wasn't just 1, but 2. Xiaohua just happened to know these 2. One of the elders was Skyward Pavilion's Fu Feng. The other was guest elder Lu Yun. The current Lu Yun was quite different from when Xiaohua first met her. Her hair was completely white, and the wrinkles on her face had increased. However, the only thing that hadn't changed was her plain robe. Looking at Fu Feng again, he was a male cultivator after all. His hair and beard were still white, and he couldn't see any special changes. Of course, the 2 of them still had one thing that didn't change, which was their 12th layer aura refining cultivation. Alas, seeing that the 2 people who were previously high up didn't make any progress in their cultivation, Xiaohua inwardly sighed. I've been following the wind and the current smoothly. I haven't thought about it for a long time. How many cultivators are there on Donrain continent? And how many can step into foundation establishment? And how many can step into core formation? Cultivation is really too difficult. I came late. Please forgive me, fellow Taoist. Fu Feng walked at the very front. When he saw Haoming City's city guard, he promptly smiled apologetically. The city guard didn't have the respect he had when he saw Xiaohua, but he also didn't have any intention of looking down on him. He faintly smiled and said, Elder Fu, don't be anxious. The time hasn't come yet. There are still 2 more fellow Taoists. Fu Feng knew that Jinhua Mountain was nothing in the eyes of Haoming City. In any case, he was an elder and still needed to protect Jinhua Mountain's face. Thus, he cupped his hands and casually walked to Xiaohua's side. After waiting for several Jinhua Mountain disciples to stand still, Xiaohua smiled again. Wasn't the one standing behind Fu Feng precisely another old acquaintance of his? That Skyward Pavilion's Fu Shan. At this time, Fu Shan was already middle-aged, and his cultivation had also stepped into the 9th layer of aura refining. He could still be distinguished from his appearance. How interesting. Xiaohua inwardly laughed. I haven't seen a Jinhua Mountain disciple for a long time. I almost forgot about him. I didn't expect to meet him here all of a sudden. I wonder what a Jinhua Mountain disciple wants to do through Inkcloud Black Forest. Thinking up to here, Xiaohua suddenly quivered and came to a realization. Damn it, I understand now. Didn't I see him before? It seems he wants to go to Meng through the transportation formation. I don't have time to look for him, but Jinhua Mountain will meet. Jinhua Mountain must have obtained information about him, and went to look for him. Only this way can Jinhua Mountain send 2 elders. Thinking of the coincidence, Xiaohua naturally thought of the twin talisman jades and talisman puppets that were like flowers and moons, as well as the talisman puppets that lost their lives for love. Alas, I wonder how the coincidence is now. Does he know that his whereabouts have already been exposed? Xiaohua slightly wrinkled his brows. After all, he still had the talisman refining method on him, and some cultivation methods that he had promised to temporarily keep. Xiaohua had long since had no use for these things, but he had no choice but to return the coincidence. And it's better to return the coincidence. Xiaohua very simply made a decision. At this time, the last 2 enchanting cultivators also came. These two cultivators took out the jade slips. After the city guard examined them, they quietly stood to the side and didn't say anything. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept through the two cultivators' enchanting cloaks. He couldn't see their true faces, but he already knew that they were at least foundation establishment. This was because Xiao Hua currently possessed core formation strength. As long as the cultivation of qi condensation was below the 12th layer, the enchanting cloak couldn't obstruct his inspection. Chapter 2079. Strange, Xiao Hua had Yu Chen's warning in advance, so he was very careful. When he saw the two cultivators, he couldn't help but think of Qiu Mingwei and Liao Xianlan. After all, he had refined talismans with Liao Xianlan on Jinhua Mountain, and had seen the grudges between the Fu family and the Liao family. However, now that he thought about it, Qiu Mingwei had already made it clear that he wanted to stand up for Liao Xianlan, but because of Xiao Hua, the foundation establishment cultivators of the three sects came together and forced Xiao Hua to flee. Now that so many years had passed, there should be an end to it. Liao Xianlan and Qiu Mingwei might not be thinking about the Fu family. Of course, the most important thing was that Liao Xianlan was only in the 5th layer of qi refining at that time. Xiao Hua didn't think that she could surpass Xue Xue and reach foundation establishment in one fell swoop. It's better if it's not the Liao family of Gung Mountain. Xiao Hua thought to himself. This way, I won't have to get involved in the grudges between the two families. This kind of scheming and deceit is everywhere in the Xiaoyu continent. I don't want to get involved in it. When the last two cultivators appeared, the city guard of Haoming City checked the jade slip and immediately led Xiao Hua and the others out of the city. He escorted them all the way to the edge of the ink shadow black forest, where there was an extremely secretive secret path, before he turned around and left. This secret path was obviously different from the one Xiao Hua had taken before. It was very close to the ground, and his divine sense was abnormally stable. Fellow Taoist Xiao, please, Fu Feng said very politely to Xiao Hua. The distance between Haoming City and Inkcloud Black Forest was not short, and it was enough for Xiao Hua to get close to Fu Feng. Fu Feng knew that there was nothing in Jinhua Mountain that anyone coveted except for talismans, so he wasn't afraid of Xiao Hua's probing. Although he was a little vigilant, he was still very polite to this cultivator. After all, it was good for him to not provoke or befriend a cultivator. Xiao Hua glanced at the people around him. In addition to the two cultivators in camouflage, there were 3 cultivators in the early stage of foundation establishment. The other 20 or so cultivators were around the 11th layer of qi refining. So he said to the 2 cultivators, "Fellow Taoist, how should I address you?" "My surname is Qiu." The man raised his voice and replied, "I understand what fellow Taoist Xiao means. However, I am here to travel with my beloved concubine, and have no time to care about other matters. I bid my farewells." With that, the cultivator clasped his hands and grabbed the other cultivator. The 2 of them flew into the secret passage. "Surname Qiu? Beloved concubine?" Xiao Hua stared blankly. He'd already excluded Qiu Mingwei from the list, but this cultivator actually declared himself to be surnamed Qiu, which sounded very similar to Qiu Mingwei's surname. Could it really be Qiu Mingwei? Xiao Hua pondered for a moment, but then shook his head. This young master is overthinking things. This fur coat might be Qiu, or it might be Qiu. It might not be Qiu Mingwei's fur coat. Moreover, it's impossible for Liao Xianlan to dual cultivate with Qiu Mingwei. After all, the difference in age and cultivation between the 2 is too great. Fortunately, the other 3 foundation-building cultivators also brought their own aura-refining disciples. They were actually willing to cooperate with Xiao Hua and pass through the secret passage together. Therefore, after some slight arrangements, everyone flew into Inkcloud Black Forest. This time, it was different from when Xiao Hua entered the forest. The purpose of this trip was only to pass through. Moreover, this secret passage had been inspected by Haoming City, and many cultivators had passed through it safely in the past few years. Even before entering Inkcloud Black Forest, the disciples of Haoming City had already explained many things to take note of. Therefore, more than a month later, at the other end of Inkcloud Black Forest, When Xiaohua hurriedly flew out of Inkcloud Black Forest, the people of Mount Jinhua, the 3 foundation-building cultivators, and their disciples were already safely waiting outside. As soon as they saw Xiaohua fly out, the 3 foundation-building cultivators flew up and bowed. "Senior, thank you for your help. If you weren't here today, we would all be buried in the mouth of Inkcloud." Xiaohua, who was flying in the air, had a bitter smile on his face. It was not a big deal at first, but when they were about to reach the end of the secret path, an ink Zhao suddenly appeared. Everyone knew how powerful this ink Zhao was. Even Golden Core cultivators had to retreat, so how could a group of Foundation establishment cultivators withstand it? One by one, they fled like monkeys scattering when the tree fell. Their escape was not a big deal, but Inkcloud, who seemed to be lost and even leisurely strolling, became interested and chased after them. Xiaohua had no choice but to tell Shui to stay behind and lead Inkcloud to another place. Finally, he used the earth escape technique to escape from the Black Forest. "It's okay," Xiaohua said with a smile. "It's fate that we are going the same way. It's not a big deal for me to help you." Seeing Xiaohua's indifferent demeanor, the 3 foundation-building cultivators were very embarrassed. They all smiled apologetically and said, "We didn't know your cultivation level, Senior. Along the way, we were slow. Please forgive us." "Haha, the ignorant are not guilty." Xiaohua waved his hand. "If it weren't for this ink cloud, I wouldn't have let you know my cultivation level." The 3 foundation-building cultivators looked at each other and smiled apologetically. "We are cultivators from Ming Kingdom. May I invite you to our sect for a chat?" "No need," Xiaohua said with a smile. "I'm just traveling around. I don't want to get into trouble." However, after he finished speaking, he had a thought and asked, "I came to Ming Kingdom to ask you about something." "Please ask, Senior," the 3 said respectfully. "There is a cultivation family in the south of Ming Kingdom. They might be good at refining. Do you know which family it is?" Xiaohua thought for a moment and asked by accident. "Haha, Senior asked the right person." One of the cultivators bowed and said, "I am Miao Yan from the Miao family in Ming Kingdom's Qi City. Qi City is in the south of Ming Kingdom, close to the QC. As far as I know, there are 2 famous refining families. One is the Fei family in Jiqing, and the other is the Qin family in Fan City. I wonder which family is Senior looking for?" This Xiaohua was speechless. He didn't know whether the cultivator holding the gold leaf in the auction in Qiyue City could refine or not. However, if he asked the families in the south of Ming Kingdom, he wouldn't have any clues. Seeing that Xiaohua was silent, Miao Yan said with a smile, "If Senior is interested, Junior can accompany Senior to Jiqing and Fan City. My Qi City's Miao family is somewhat famous in the south of Ming Kingdom. It won't be difficult to find a cultivation family." If it wasn't for the matter of Mount Jinhua, Xiaohua naturally would have followed Miao Yan. However, seeing that the Jinhua Mountain Elder and Qiu Mingwei had also come to Ming Kingdom, he was afraid that they would all rush over. How could he give up? Therefore, Xiaohua said with a smile, "Forget it. Now that I have something to do, let's wait for the future." "All right." Miao Yan clapped his hands and took out his communication talisman. He respectfully handed it over and said, "This is Junior's communication talisman. If Senior comes to Qi City, please inform Junior. Junior will do his best." "Good." Xiaohua accepted it with a smile. Miao Yan was also happy. Chapter 2080. Senior, this Junior is Shuepei from Xianlu sect. This is Junior's communication talisman. Another Foundation establishment cultivator quickly took it out and respectfully handed it over. "Oh, so you are a disciple of Xianlu sect?" Xiaohua nodded and said, "This old man has seen Daoist Master Bluefeather, Daoist Li Qingxiu, and Daoist Jiming in Haoming City. Why didn't you go with them?" Hearing that Xiaohua had actually seen Daoist Master Bluefeather, Shuepei's face became even more respectful. He smiled apologetically and said, "How could this Junior have a place in front of Grandmaster Bluefeather? Didn't this Junior just come back from the outside world? Even Marshal Uncle Li and Senior Brother Jiming didn't see her." Then he carefully asked, May I know where Senior met Grandmaster Bluefeather? He, naturally at the auction. Xiaohua smiled and said. If it was somewhere else, how could this old man have seen her? This Junior is Zhang Zhihao from Clearleaf Sect. This is Junior's communication talisman. When the last Foundation establishment cultivator saw that Shuepei had finished asking, he quickly took the initiative to hand over his communication talisman. The last trace of scruples from before had long disappeared. Clearleaf Sect? This name is somewhat familiar. Where have I heard it before? Xiaohua was slightly stunned. However, he thought for a moment, and was sure that he had only seen many cultivators from Ming country at the Feather Immortal Assembly. He really hadn't met them at other times. Okay, Xiaohua took the 3 communication talismans and said with a smile. If this old man has any matters, I will have to trouble you to wait. We dare not, the 3 smiled and said. For a senior like Senior who saved people without asking for the reason and led the trouble to others, we are willing to serve Senior. Then, the 3 of them took their disciples and flew away. Senior, when it was Jinhua Mountain's turn, Lu Yun, who had always been slightly cold, accompanied Fu Feng and flew in front of Xiaohua with a respectful expression. This Junior didn't know that Senior Fu Feng stuttered. He thought that Xiaohua was just an early Foundation establishment cultivator. He didn't expect that he could actually kill Mo Zhao. This was the strength of a golden core cultivator. He was Senior Fu Feng's senior. Okay. Xiaohua waved his hand. Just when he was about to speak, Fu Shan, who had a flying charm stuck on his body, flew towards him again. He was so scared that he forgot that his flying charm was about to lose its effect. Moreover, he was flying towards the tunnel. He fell from the sky after flying for a few feet. If Xiaohua did not catch him in time and give him a flying charm, he would have fallen into Mo Zhao's mouth. Seeing Fu Shan fly away, Xiaohua looked at this guy with interest. Back then on Jinhua Mountain, Fu Shan had made things difficult for Xiaohua quite a bit. However, from the looks of it now, Fu Shan was just jealous of Xiaohua because of the talisman puppet. How could Xiaohua take it to heart? Junior thanks Senior for saving my life. Fu Shan flew closer, but he didn't dare to get too close. He bowed and saluted with a grateful look. If they weren't in midair, he would have already kowtowed to thank him. Xiaohua flicked his sleeves and said indifferently, It's nothing not worth mentioning. May I know Senior's name? If you can bestow us with a name, we will definitely remember it. Fu Feng quickly asked. How could Xiaohua tell them his name? He smiled and said, Just know that I's surname is Xiao. Why do you need to know my name? Junior understands. Fu Feng replied with a lowered eyebrow. Lu Yan also felt a bit ashamed. She bowed and said, Junior is Jinhua Mountain's guest elder Lu Yun. Junior thanks Senior for saving my life. Junior had misunderstood Senior before. I hope Senior can forgive me. Don't say any more, Xiaohua waved his hand. I was just casually helping you. It's really troublesome for all of you to go up and thank me one by one. Yes, Junior doesn't dare. Lu Yan thought that her previous coldness had angered Xiaohua. Her face showed a bit of panic as she hurriedly stood up. Fine, Xiaohua saw Lu Yan's appearance. He didn't know whether to explain or not. He could only frown and said, I don't like conventional etiquette. I don't have any other intentions. You all don't need to think too much. After saying that, his body floated up and said, I want to travel in Ming country. You all can go. Yes, Fu Feng, Lu Yan, Jinhua Mountain and the others all bowed and said, Farewell, Senior. Xiaohua just flew up a few feet and asked casually, All right, why did you all come so far with your qi refinement cultivation? Did something happen in Ming country? This Fu Feng was a bit hesitant. Lu Yun smiled apologetically and said, I, Jinhua Mountain, have some private matters to deal with in Ming country. Junior and the others need to go to White Bamboo Mountain. I have no intention to inquire about your whereabouts. I also won't interfere with the matters of Jinhua Mountain's Fu family. Xiaohua was secretly happy. His purpose was obviously to inquire about the whereabouts of Fu Feng and the others. However, he still said, The 2 Miho cultivators who passed through the secret passage seem to be interested in you all. Their cultivation is above Foundation establishment, so I have to remind you all. After saying that, Xiaohua pulled Xue and flew up, disappearing in a direction. Senior Fu Feng heard and hurriedly raised his voice. Unfortunately, Xiaohua deliberately avoided him and didn't pay attention to him. Looking at Xiaohua's flying figure, Fu Feng didn't blame Lu Yun for revealing their purpose. He whispered, "Elder Lu, according to Senior Zhao's words, our operation today was leaked. How could we, Jinhua Mountain's Qi refinement cultivators, be coveted by two foundation establishment cultivators? Could it be that the cultivator surnamed Qiu is Qiu Mingwei?" Qiu Mingwei. Lu Yun also realized and said in surprise, "The middle foundation establishment cultivator, who fought with our family head several decades ago in Jinhua Mountain. And it's that senior." Fu Feng's face was very gloomy. He was present that day and knew how powerful Qiu Mingwei was. "If this senior follows us, we will be in great danger this time." "But that's not right." Lu Yun frowned and said, "When Qiu Mingwei came to Jinhua Mountain several decades ago, he was already a middle foundation establishment cultivator. And his cultivation was already higher than our family head. If he has any ulterior motives, why would he follow us? Wouldn't he be able to kill us with a flip of his hand? We still need to be careful." Fu Feng still shook his head. "In my opinion, we should. Elder Fu, are you going to return to Jinhua Mountain?" Lu Yun was surprised. "It's just a cultivator surnamed Qiu. Do we have to take the risk and go through the ink cloud black forest?" Fu Feng's expression changed a few times. He looked at the sky in the distance and seemed to be thinking about something. After a while he said, "Elder Lu, you don't know. We came to Meng Kingdom this time not only to find Fu Zhu, Fu Puppet, and the corresponding information, but more importantly Fu Feng didn't dare to neglect the rest of the words, and only transmitted them to Lu Yun." "Ah? There's such a thing?" As a guest elder, Lu Yun obviously didn't know much. Only now did she understand the importance of this trip, and couldn't help but cry out. "That's right. If that cultivator is really Qiu Mingwei, then what he covets is the foundation of Jinhua Mountain?" Fu Feng said while gnashing his teeth. "Hee, I'm afraid it's not that complicated." Lu Yun thought for a while and said with a smile, "As far as I know, Senior Qiu came to Jinhua Mountain for the Liao family of Gung Mountain, and the girl named Liao Xianlan. If Senior Qiu still wants to find trouble with Jinhua Mountain, it must be Liao Xuanlan's idea." Senior Xiao said clearly that there are two foundation establishment cultivators. One is the partner of the other. If Liao Xianlan is here, how can she be a foundation establishment cultivator? Besides, if two foundation establishment cultivators come together, we can't resist any means. Even if the family head is here, it's useless. I don't think this person is Qiu Mingwei, Lu Yun said decisively. That's strange. Obviously Lu Yun thought the same as Xiaohua. Fu Feng also realized it and scratched his head. "I don't understand why Senior Xiao said that. Alas, if I knew, I would have told Senior Xiao more. Maybe we hid it from him and made him angry. Otherwise, we could have asked Senior Xiao to help us," Fu Feng said regretfully. "Senior Xiao is a golden core cultivator. How can he care about our trivial matters?" Lu Yun said disapprovingly. "We should think about how to solve it ourselves. Elder Fu, don't say that the family head doesn't have a backup plan." "Hee, that's natural," Fu Feng said with a smile. When the family head was traveling in Ming country, he had two good friends. They are also foundation establishment cultivators. Moreover, they are from Ming country's cultivation families. If we ask them to back us up, we should be able to scare away this foundation establishment cultivator, who might be Senior Qiu. "That's good," Lu Yun said while clapping her hands. Immediately, the people from Jinhua Mountain flew toward the south of Ming country. Damn it, I almost ruined it with just one sentence. Xiaohua sat cross-legged a few li away. He used his divine sense to check the area. After Fu Feng and the others flew away, he let out a sigh of relief and said, "If they turn back to Jinhua Mountain, it would be hard for me to find a suitable one. Who knows if the white bamboo mountain they talked about is real or fake?" "Husband, you seem to be very interested in this Jinhua Mountain," Shueshue said with some confusion. Jinhua Mountain is considered a talisman-making family. However, they are currently in a decline. compared to my Misty Mountain and Flying Phoenix Mountain, they are still lacking a lot. Hee, you don't know, Xiaohua said with a smile. Your husband has some stories in Jinhua Mountain. Is that so? Shue's eyes lit up. She said with a smile. I'm all ears. Good, Xiaohua nodded. Let's talk. As we walk several months later, in the south of Meng country, in an endless grassland, two figures flew through the sky. They flew past the faint dark clouds and rushed toward the towering mountain in the distance. These two people were Xiaohua and Shui. Meng country was somewhat different from Shi country. There were more grasslands and mountain ranges. Relatively speaking, there were fewer lakes, rivers, and barren hills and rivers. Moreover, there were many small cities in Meng country. Some of them were occupied by secular people, some of them were occupied by cultivation families, and there were even more than 10 cities controlled by cultivation sects. Along the way, Xiaohua and Shui passed through mostly small cities. There were very few big cities. Of course, they were tailing the disciples of Jinhua Mountain. Presumably, they were trying to cover their tracks. Chapter 2081. In the past few months, Xiaohua had also made some inquiries. White Bamboo Mountain was located in the south of Meng country. It was not a famous mountain range, and there was only one cultivation family and a small sect around it. Although Fu Feng and the others had concealed their tracks, they had always been heading towards White Bamboo Mountain. They had even inquired about the movements of White Bamboo Mountain, so Xiaohua was certain that the disciples of Jinhua Mountain were going to White Bamboo Mountain. Today, after Fu Feng and the others came out of the transmission array, they rested in a small town and bought some gifts in the small town. Obviously, they were going to meet someone. Xiaohua and Shui did not want to wait for long, so they flew out first. They were already very close to White Bamboo Mountain, so Xiaohua could find the corresponding tracks himself. Husband, you said that the two foundation establishment cultivators might be disloyal to the disciples of Jinhua Mountain, but along the way, we have not seen any traces of them? We have already arrived at White Bamboo Mountain. Why haven't they appeared? Shui stood in the air and asked very leisurely. Xiaohua was a little embarrassed and said with a smile. Yuchen did not say clearly. How would I know? Maybe the two foundation establishment cultivators asked too many questions, making Yuchen feel that there is a problem. Right, it has been several months. How is your practice of the cultivation method? When will you take the Ling Lei Dan? No hurry, Shui said with a charming smile. Could it be that my husband is in a hurry to dual cultivate with me? No. Xiaohua touched his nose and said. Even if I want to, I can't say it now. I have been practicing for several months, and I feel that this cultivation method is more and more powerful, Shui said with a serious expression. At this time, my meridians have already expanded a little. If I practice again, I think it can still expand. I want to lay a good foundation for qi refining meridians before foundation establishment. Xiaohua originally wanted to say, after foundation establishment, this dragon transformation art can still be practiced, and your meridians can also expand. But when the words came to his mouth, he stopped. After all, everyone's cultivation was different, and Shui wanted to be steady, so he said with a smile, it doesn't matter, your husband still has the same words. You can slowly cultivate, and your husband will accompany you until the day foundation establishment. My husband is the best. Shui smiled sweetly, and then she lowered her head and said, unfortunately, no one in this world is as fortunate as I am. Just think about that talisman puppet. For the sake of being suitable, she gave her body to another, yet she still couldn't obtain the love she desired. When I see someone suitable, I'll really ask him properly. Yes, it's more than that. Ever since Xiaohua told her about his experience in Jinhua Mountain, Shui had endless sympathy for the talisman puppet. She kept mentioning it, so how could Xiaohua refute her? He added, Songqing is Fu Zhu and Fu Ba's biological siblings. Since they've been intimate with each other, I'd like to see how Songqing will handle this. Are Fu Zhu and Fu Puppet really that beautiful? Shui rolled her eyes and asked. Back then, did you also have a plan in mind? When you entered Mount Jinhua, did you not think, That you would find such a beautiful dual cultivation partner and stay in Mount Jinhua for the rest of your life? Xiaohua smiled bitterly. This question didn't seem to be the first time he'd asked, right? Thus, Xiaohua rubbed his nose and replied righteously, "All right, I'll let my wife know. Back then, your husband didn't think too much. I only thought about cultivation. If you want to make a name for yourself, any kind of beauty is nothing in front of you." Puffed, Shueshue laughed and said, "I don't believe you. You said it yourself. Songqing is extremely handsome. Fu Zhu and Fu Ba simply don't like you." "My wife," Xiaohua said awkwardly. "It's fine as long as you know this. Why bring it out to attack your husband? Isn't your husband just a little less handsome than Songqing? Besides, my wife already knows, so why ask me every time?" "Hee hee, I just want to see if your answer is the same every time." Shueshue covered her mouth and laughed. But at this time, Xiaohua didn't respond as expected. Instead, he frowned and lowered his head to look at the ground. "Husband?" Shueshue asked curiously. At the same time, she also looked down. However, under their feet was a withered and yellow grassland. Mottled yellow soil could be seen from the withered grass. It was as ugly as a child's head. Shueshue was very puzzled. She also swept out her divine sense. However, other than withered grass and yellow soil, there was still nothing special. "Husband?" Shueshue raised her voice and asked, "What's there to see here? Could it be that my husband found the traces of those two foundation establishment cultivators?" "No," Xiaohua's eyes flashed with a strange light. He shook his head and said, "Ever since Mo Zhao and the Black Forest, I haven't seen those two people." "Then why did you?" Shueshue asked. "Oh, my wife." Xiaohua pointed at the withered grassland and asked, "This grassland is so barren. Don't you think it's very strange?" "Ah?" Shueshue was stunned. She looked again and shook her head. "Husband, I don't feel anything strange. It's already midsummer. It's the time when the rain is moistened. This grassland should be lush with water and grass, cattle and sheep everywhere. However, look, it's all barren. Where did the cattle and sheep come from? Then where did the shepherds go?" Xiaohua patiently explained. "Ah?" Shueshue was even more puzzled. She muttered, I don't know. Moreover, where the shepherds went, does it have anything to do with us?" Yes, the grassland was barren and the cattle and sheep were missing. What did it have to do with Shueshue? What did it have to do with cultivation? How could Shueshue know? "Come with me." Xiaohua knew what Shueshue was thinking. He swept his divine sense and flew towards another direction. Although Shueshue was puzzled, she still followed. They flew for dozens of miles and arrived at a hilly area. It was a mountainous area. On the hillside, there were layers of cultivated fields. They were like stairs that extended from the top of the mountain to the foot of the mountain. However, at this time, in the cultivated fields, there were cracks from the top of the mountain to the foot of the mountain. The cracks were like dry human skin. Where was the appearance of a cultivated field? In the barren cultivated fields, not to mention the crops, even the grasses were in 2s and 3s. Seeing the deep compassion in Xiaohua's eyes, Shueshue was very puzzled. Just as she was about to speak, Xiaohua raised his head again. He sped up and landed halfway on a hill. On this hill, there was a solitary straw shed. Beside the straw shed, there was a huge rock. Beside the rock, there was a small well. Shueshue didn't know what Xiaohua was doing. She silently fell behind Xiaohua and followed him to the straw shed. The straw shed was very simple and crude. There were only a few crooked branches and some scattered withered grass. Turning around the straw shed, they saw a piece of cultivated field that was several zhang in size. Inside, there were a dozen or so tender seedlings standing there listlessly. However, Xiaohua's gaze swept across the field and landed on the straw shed. He couldn't help but feel a piercing pain in his heart. Chapter 2082. Ah! Shueshue casually glanced around and was immediately shocked. She covered her mouth with her hand and looked inside with her eyes wide open in disbelief. There was only a shabby straw mat in the straw hut. On the mat, there was a 2-chi-tall baby boy lying on his back. Well, rather than calling it a baby boy, it was better to call it a skeleton. Because the child's head was big, his eyes were sunken, there was no flesh on his face, and his skin was tightly stuck to his bones. He didn't wear any clothes, his ribs were bulging, his little arms and legs were curled up, and his bones were exposed. If it wasn't for his chest rising and falling, Shui would have thought that this baby was dead just by looking at him with the naked eye. Pitiful, Xiaohua sighed and continued to walk forward. Beside the straw hut was a ridge in the fields. An old man in ragged clothes was squatting there weakly, looking at the dozen or so seedlings in front of him with lifeless eyes. Xiaohua and Shui's voices had already alarmed the old man. However, the old man indifferently raised his head and glanced at them. His turbid eyes were cold, and he lowered his head again. "Sir." Xiaohua walked forward and bowed. "Sir." Shui once again saw that Xiaohua was different. She understood that although Xiaohua's face was very light, he might not be much younger than the old man. There was no need for him to be so respectful. "Little brother, what's the matter?" The old man seemed to be unwilling to pay attention to Xiaohua. He didn't even look at Xiaohua and said in a low voice. That voice seemed to be in his throat, as if he was afraid of wasting energy. Sir Xiaohua's words were stuck in his mouth, he didn't know where to start. After thinking for a moment, Xiaohua turned to Shui and said, "Wife, do you have anything to eat in your storage bag?" Yes, Shui hurriedly said. She clapped her hands and took out a jade bottle, and handed it to Xiaohua. "What is this?" Xiaohua frowned. "Fasting pill," Shui hurriedly said. Sigh, Xiaohua shook his head and said, "This thing can only be used for fasting, it can't support the consumption of ordinary people." Oh, Shui's face slightly reddened. She understood Xiaohua's meaning and said in a low voice, "I haven't eaten for a long time, how can I have such things?" Shui's eyes lit up as she reminded him, "My husband, although we don't have any food, spirit fruits should be edible." "That's right." Xiaohua slapped his forehead and waved his hand, taking out several different spirit fruits. After tasting them one by one, his mouth actually gradually became bitter. The spiritual light in his space was abundant, and all the spiritual fruits were full of spiritual qi. This was extremely good for cultivators, but how could these ordinary people eat them? Not to mention the old man and the baby whose bodies were on the verge of collapse. What should we do? Xiaohua scratched his head. He was clear in his heart that the old man's situation was better, but the baby was in danger. Even if he could fly back to the city to find food, the baby wouldn't be able to wait for him to return. Why don't we take the baby and leave? Xiaohua's heart was filled with compassion. My husband, Shui clapped her hands and took out several dried spirit jujubes. She said in a low voice, "This is what I took out to satisfy my cravings in Xuanlei Palace in the early years. Do you think it's okay?" "Great." Xiaohua reached out to take the spirit jujubes and kiss Shui's face. He said with a smile, "Today 2 lives were saved by you." Seeing Shui's beaming face, Xiaohua took a bite of the spirit jujube and handed it to the old man. He said with a smile, "Old man, you can eat this spirit jujube first, this little one can slowly ask you." The old man's turbid eyes flashed with a trace of luster. He waved his dark, thin, and dirty hand and grabbed the spirit jujubes. He opened his mouth, and was about to throw them into his mouth. "Old man," Xiaohua hurriedly blocked the old man's hand, as if he didn't dislike the filth on his hand. He said in a low voice, "You can only eat this thing bite by bite, and you can only eat half of it." The old man glanced at Xiaohua. He hesitated for a moment, then picked one out with his finger, and gently bit off a piece of meat with his teeth. Xiaohua carefully observed the old man, fearing that there would be some problem with this spirit jujube. But after the old man chewed for a while, he actually couldn't swallow it and struggled to get up from the ground. The old man didn't have much strength now. How could he stand steadily? He staggered and was about to fall again. Xiaohua hurriedly supported him and asked, "Old man, where are you going?" The old man didn't answer and rushed towards the straw hut. Xiaohua secretly sighed. He supported the old man with one hand, and followed him into the straw hut. Sure enough, the old man hurriedly arrived in front of the infant boy and knelt on the ground with a putong sound. He bent down and used his mouth to pass the jujube meat that he had just chewed into the infant's mouth. As soon as the fragrant jujube meat entered the infant's mouth, The infant greedily chewed. After chewing a few times, the infant's slightly trembling lips stopped and a trace of bitterness appeared on his face. But immediately he hurriedly chewed again. Obviously, the infant used his only baby teeth to bite his lips. Inger, slow down. Grandpa still has more here, the old man said in a low voice. He hurriedly took another bite of the jujube meat and wanted to feed it to the infant again. Xiaohua's heart was incomparably bitter. He also squatted down and said warmly, "Old man, the infant's life is no longer in danger. He can't eat too much of this jujube meat. You should eat it first." And when the old man heard this, he looked at the infant's small tongue that was greedily licking his lips. He wanted to give more to the infant, but he was afraid that something might go wrong. He looked at Xiaohua. "Hehe, with Xiaoke here, I won't let anything happen to the infant," Xiaohua said again. Wu, the old man whimpered and finally swallowed the jujube meat that he had chewed for a long time. Sure enough, as soon as the jujube meat entered his stomach, it immediately rushed to his forelimbs and bones like a flood. An incomparable comfort spread through his body and his forelimbs suddenly had strength. The old man was wild with joy. He looked at the infant again, and his eyes also opened. He even wanted to sit up. "Thank you, immortal elder." The old man no longer ignored him and bowed his head. "Don't," Xiaohua hurriedly grabbed the old man and said with a smile. "Old man, you should eat another bite. There's no need to keep it all. Later I will think of a way for you." Yes, the old man's own thoughts were exposed and he heard that Xiaohua actually wanted to think of a way for him. His eyes lit up, and he reluctantly ate another bite of the spirit jujube. After the old man finished eating the spirit jujube, he slightly closed his eyes and rested for a moment. The infant boy also sat up. Because of his skinny body, his large eyes looked around randomly. From time to time, he would look at Shui and then at Xiaohua. This old man's name is Fan Nong. This is this old man's grandson, Heir. The old man rested and bowed. This old man thanks Immortal Elder and Immortal Elder for your great kindness. I also ask Immortal Elder to bestow names. This old man and grandson will definitely set up a longevity tablet for Immortal Elder and Immortal Elder, and we will worship you every day. Hehe, Xiaohua flicked his sleeve and said, I's name is Xiaohua. This is I's lover, Shui. As for the longevity tablet, let's talk about it later. Old man, first tell I, why is this place so barren? AI, it's hard to explain in a few words. Fan Nong sighed. He pointed down the mountain and said, this old man lives in the Fan Manor at the foot of the mountain. Following Fan Nong's finger, in a depression at the foot of the mountain, there was a village. Scattered villages were scattered around in twos and threes. Xiaohua casually scanned with his divine sense, and was about to ask again. But at this moment, Xiaohua's face slightly changed and he angrily said, Bastard. As he spoke, Xiaohua's figure suddenly flew up and quickly rushed down the mountain. That speed was definitely something Shui had never seen before. Husband Shui covered her mouth again. She looked at Xiaohua in disbelief as his figure disappeared into one of the villages in the Fan Manor. A moment later, Xiaohua flew back again. His left hand was holding a baby in swaddling clothes, and his right hand was holding a skinny woman. The woman's eyes were tightly closed and she seemed to have fainted. Husband, why is that? Shui asked curiously. Xiaohua's face was very ugly. He didn't answer Shui and handed the baby to Fan Nong and said, Old man, feed some of those dates to the baby. And, although Fan Nong was somewhat reluctant, he didn't dare to disobey Xiaohua's words. He took a small bite of the date meat and chewed it up to feed it to the baby. At the same time, Xiaohua pointed at the woman. The woman sitting on the ground opened her eyes. However, the woman's face was ashen and there was no light in her eyes. She glanced at Xiaohua, and then at the baby in Fan Nong's hand. Let this Xiao ask you, Xiaohua said coldly. Since ancient times, even an evil tiger wouldn't eat its cubs. Why did you kill your own baby? Ah? Shui was shocked and looked at the dark and skinny woman in disbelief. The woman didn't pay attention to Xiaohua and struggled to get up. However, after moving a few times, she didn't seem to have any strength. She sat down again and her ash-white eyes turned a few times and a trace of ridicule appeared. That ridicule angered Xiaohua. Xiao Hua said coldly. This Xiao knows that you have been starving for a long time. If you don't eat, you will die. However, can you bear to eat your own flesh and blood? Are you still human? Ha ha ha. The woman laughed mournfully. Of course I'm not human. Why would I be human? Saying this, she threw herself on the ground and wept weakly. Daoist Xiao Fannong saw this and said in a low voice, I'm afraid Daoist Xiao has misunderstood Qianshi. She and Qianer have always been filial. This wants to use the child to feed his mother, right? Ah? Shui couldn't help but exclaim. Then what about Qianer? I'll let Fairy Shui know, Fannong said mournfully. If this old man's guess is correct, Qianer, I'm afraid, is already in his mother's stomach. Shui didn't exclaim this time. Her right hand trembled slightly, and her eyes flashed with an indescribable brilliance. This Xiao was wrong. Hearing this, Xiao Hua's divine sense immediately swept out again. He saw an old woman lying on the ground in the village house on the verge of death. He sighed and bowed towards Qianshi. How could you immortals be wrong? It's all us mortals who are wrong. Qianshi didn't seem to appreciate it and said coldly, even if we ate our own flesh and blood, if there weren't any spirit stones, you definitely wouldn't do anything. You are naturally free and unfettered. Why would you care about our lives? Now, even if you saved my boy, can you save this Nujia? Can you save this Nujia's mother? Can you save the dozens of old and young in my Fan Manor? Can you revive the villagers who starved to death? Chapter 2083. Qianshi's words were weak, but when Xiao Hua heard every word for some reason, he felt ashamed in his heart. Yes, he was a golden core cultivator and could kill cultivators with low cultivation at will. He could fly in the sky and burrow into the ground, carefree and unfettered, and could view mortals as ants. But what did that count for? In this world, would he be able to save the common people? What was the use of cultivator's cultivation? Shui was even more unbearable. She had never faced this mortal world, and had never seen such a cruel situation. She also never thought that under the same blue sky, while she was dancing with her lover, there were many mortals in the mortal world who were in an abyss of suffering, on the brink of death, in a situation where they had to eat raw human flesh to fill their stomachs. In the time it took to smoke a cigarette, Qianshi's sobs had gradually stopped due to her lack of strength. Xiao Hua then came to his senses and sighed. Excellent. Although I am powerless to reverse the situation now, I will definitely cultivate with all my might, and hope that there will be a day when I have the power to reverse the situation. Moreover, today with my ability, I will definitely spare your lives. Yes, if they were mortals, how could they have any methods? Only cultivators had the power to resist this natural disaster. The stronger Xiao Hua was, the more authority he had to speak. Can you make rain? Can you make rice grow in a barren land? Qianshi asked again. Even the immortal elders of Misty Cloud's sect wouldn't dare to boast like this, right? Ha ha ha. At this moment, Xiao Hua was even more enlightened. He knew that there must be some secrets that he didn't know. So he laughed and said, since I said it, I will definitely be able to do it. Let's not talk about anything else, let's save you first. Husband, I will stay here to take care of things. You should quickly go to Yu City to buy food. With husband's speed, you will be able to return quickly. Shui said anxiously. Fu Xiaohua muttered to himself for a moment. Then his eyes lit up and he said with a smile, why is it so troublesome? Moreover, if I leave, I'm afraid that many people will die in a short while. After saying that, Xiaohua waved his hand, and the dozen or so half-dead seedlings in Fan Nong's field were collected into his space. Then he flew in front of Fan Nong and said with a smile, old man, come with this Xiao. Let's first rescue the dead people in your Fan Manor. Yes, I will follow your orders. Fan Nong returned the baby to Mrs. Qian, stood up and smiled apologetically. Thus, Xiaohua grabbed Fan Nong's collar and flew down the mountain. In the time it took to eat a meal, Xiaohua brought Fan Nong back to the farmland. Shui hurriedly stepped forward and asked, husband, what's the situation? Xiaohua had a bitter smile on his face as he replied, there are only a few spirit jujubes, and there are too many people who are about to die. Your husband can only choose a few seriously hungry old men, or infant boy. I can't take care of the others for the time being. Then what should we do? Shui was originally kind. Previously, she treated the common people like ants. Although she didn't pity the common people like Xiaohua, she still became anxious and said, Husband, you should hurry and go. This concubine will guard this place. I definitely won't let any of them die. Wife, do you have any good methods? Xiaohua's eyes brightened, and he said with a smile, Could it be that you still have some snacks from Xin Lei Palace? Shui's face reddened, and she vigorously shook her head. We can be considered to have some success in our cultivation. Xiaohua sighed. However, all of our magic arts are offensive, and all of them are for self-protection. What kind of magic art can help others? Can it save people? After saying that, Xiaohua swung his big sleeve and used the water spike technique. A large area of blue ice spikes appeared and lined up in midair. Following Xiaohua's hand seals, balls of water condensed on the farmland. These balls of water contained abundant heaven and earthling qi, and their offensive power was also shocking. However, how could these balls of water nourish the soil? Even if they nourished the several zhang of land in front of them, what about the terrace fields of the entire mountain range? What about the entire Fan Manor's farmland? A feeling of powerlessness spontaneously arose in his heart. Umitba, Xiaohua involuntarily chanted the name of Buddha in his heart, and sat cross-legged. Husband. Shui saw that not only did Xiaohua not leave to search for food, but he also sat cross-legged. She couldn't help but be shocked. However, she had always regarded Xiaohua as her leader, so she definitely wouldn't say anything that went against Xiaohua. Therefore, she only hesitated for a moment before stopping. On the side, Qianshi had already heard Fan Nong's words and knew that her mother-in-law had already been saved by Xiaohua. Panic and gratitude appeared on her dark and thin face, and her eyes were filled with incomparable love as she looked at the child in her arms. Those tears flowed down. If it weren't for the fact that she had no other choice, how could she take her own child? Very quickly, several hours passed, and the sky was already dark. Xiaohua was still regulating his breathing. Fan Nong's grandson was hungry again, and he hid in Fan Nong's arms and gnashed his teeth. Qianshi lifted her lapel, and used her thin and shriveled breast to feed the child. However, she also hadn't eaten for a long time, and was barely surviving on grass. How could she have breast to feed the child? And the child was just used to sucking. He hadn't tasted breast for a long time. Wah the infant boy wept powerlessly, and Qianshi gently coaxed him. All kinds of desolation were displayed in the cold wind. Immortal Elder. Qianshi clenched her teeth and walked in front of Xiaohua. With a plop, she knelt down again. Seeing this, Fan Nong also moved over and knelt down withing, Immortal Elder, please have mercy. This lowly servant knows that Immortal Elder can do it. This lowly servant also knows that Immortal Elder is different from Misty Cloud's sex Immortal Elder. You have a merciful heart. Qianshi gathered her words and cried. This lowly servant and the others are all mortals. We don't have any spirit stones that Immortal Elder needs, but this lowly servant is willing to exchange her life for his. As long as Immortal Elder can save this lowly servant's mother-in-law and child, this lowly servant is willing to follow Immortal Elder, and be ordered by Immortal Elder. Qianshi kowtowed, Fan Nong did the same, and evening, curled up his shriveled body and kowtowed with all his strength. Sister-in-law. Xiaohua flicked his sleeves and supported everyone. He opened his starry eyes and smiled. Since this Xiao has already reached out, I must intervene. How can this Xiao be the unbearable person that you speak of? Then, Xiaohua flicked his hand, and a large pile of rice appeared in front of them. It was at least 1 zhang in radius. Not only Qianshi and Fan Nong, but even Shui was shocked. She looked at the rice that seemed to have just been harvested in disbelief. This Xiao has been traveling all this way and didn't care about worldly food, so I didn't dare to leave easily. You can eat this rice first. It should be enough for a few days. This Xiao will go out now and see if I can find more food. Xiaohua said with a smile. Daoist Xiao, Qianshi and Fan Nong were so happy that they shed tears. They kowtowed and said, We were blinded by greed and actually misunderstood Taoist kindness. We really deserve to die. Chapter 2084. And just wait for me. Xiaohua helped the two of them up and said to Shui, "Wife, I'll have to trouble you to take care of the rice. Your husband will go out and find some food." Okay. Shui was happy to see that she could help. She urged Xiaohua to leave while she put the rice into her storage pouch and flew back to Fan Manor with Madame Qian and the others. Not to mention Fan Nong and the people of Fan Manor taking care of the rice, Xiaohua flew into the sky with a heavy heart and flew towards Yu City. His mind entered the space again. At this time, many puppets were moving. They were reclaiming the remaining land in the space piece by piece. On each piece of land, there was a puppet responsible for planting rice and harvesting rice. Xiaohua's space was originally conducive to the growth of spiritual plants. Ordinary rice like this could mature in just a few hours. However, the rice seedlings that Xiaohua obtained from Fan Nong's terrace fields were too little. Moreover, although Xiaohua asked Fan Nong how to plant rice, it was different from the planting method in his memory. He had no choice but to use the pond water that he obtained from Mo Zhao Black Forest to form paddy fields. Then he began to use the puppets to try to plant rice clumsily. These pitiful puppets that ordinary aura refining cultivators trembled in fear when they saw them. At this time, they were actually doing the work of a peasant. If Mo Qingyuan knew, he would probably fly over from the North Desert to fight Xiaohua. Alas, there are still not enough puppets. Xiaohua pulled his mind out of the space inside. These rice can't save many people. It's better to go find food. Xiaohua left for an entire night. The next day, when the sun was high in the sky, Xiaohua returned to Fan Manor with a worried expression. At this time, Fan Zhuang had already recovered some of its vitality. Many of the more robust farmers were processing the rice in the paddy field. When they saw Xiaohua flying over, they all threw down their farming tools and kowtowed. They thanked Taoist Xiao. The corners of Xiaohua's mouth curled into a smile. He used his big sleeve to help everyone up, and with a wave of his hand, he took out piles and piles of grains and piled them on the ground. Moreover, in the midst of everyone's cheers, he took out several cows from his spirit storage pouch. Alas, it's really hard on Xiaohua. He's actually still thinking about those babies who are drinking milk in his heart. Perhaps the shriveled black and skinny from last night had left an unforgettable mark in his heart. Husband, Shui's face was also filled with joy as she flew over. Clearly, she was very satisfied with helping the world and saving people yesterday. However, when she saw the worried expression on Xiaohua's face, she was slightly stunned. She turned and asked in a low voice, "What's going on? Didn't he already get the food? How? Alas." Xiaohua sighed and replied, "All along the way, we only coveted the beautiful scenery and were free and unfettered, and we've never paid attention to the hardships of the mortal world. Last night, I didn't dare to fly too far away, so I only checked around Yu City. This disaster seems to be much more serious than we thought." "Husband, what do you mean?" Shui's face tightened as she asked anxiously. "It's not just the Fan Manor that's suffering from the disaster. There are many places around Yu City that are suffering from the disaster." Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "It's just that the Fan Manor is extremely inconvenient. Fan Nong and the others can't travel far, so many people have starved to death. Although other places are on the verge of collapse, there are still people starving to death." "The food?" Shui asked quietly. Xiaohua smiled. "I found all of these with my divine sense. They belong to those rich families. I took some from each family, so it won't affect them in any way." "That's good." Shui smiled. "I was worried that you would harm those people after saving them." "How could I?" Xiaohua smiled. "My wife, you've worked hard too." "Alas, it's nothing." Shui sighed again. "I've never thought that the mortal world would be like this. Compared to them, my life is really like an immortal." "That's right." Xiaohua was just about to speak when Fan Nong quickly walked over with a few white-haired old men. Several people didn't even wait for them to get close before bowing and kowtowing. How could Xiaohua let them kowtow? He hurriedly waved his sleeve to stop them. The old man in front saw that they couldn't kowtow, So he smiled respectfully and said, I'm the leader of the Fan Manor. My name is Fan Yunxiao. Yesterday, thanks to Reverend Xiaohua's grace, I didn't die on the spot. Also, I've just received news that Reverend Xiaohua has brought countless food. My Fan Manor is finally safe in Reverend Xiaohua's hands. I've already told everyone in the Fan Manor to not only remember Reverend Xiaohua's grace in their hearts, but also to set up a longevity tablet in everyone's home. They must pray to God day and night to bring blessings to Reverend Xiaohua. Xiaohua naturally wouldn't take this kind of statement seriously. He smiled and helped the old man up, saying, Old man Fan, please rise. As long as I can contribute 30% of my strength, I definitely won't slack off 20%. To be able to see my fellow villagers living a peaceful life, I am happy in my heart. Reverend Xiaohua is really a kind person. Fan Yunxiao said with tears of gratitude. Xiaohua politely said a few more words before instructing. Sir Fan, although this humble Taoist has obtained this rice, it is still limited in the end. In this humble Taoist's opinion, if the healthy people have already rested, it would be better to plant this rice as soon as possible. While the current season is still good, we will be able to harvest a season of crops before winter. Reverend Xiaohua, you're an otherworldly person. You actually know about my farming? Fan Yunxiao said in astonishment. Haha, Xiaohua didn't explain. But Fan Yunxiao's face was bitter. He said in a low voice, It's not that my Fan Manor's children are lazy. Even if the rice is planted, if there's no rain, the rice won't grow. Oh, Xiaohua nodded. After thinking for a moment, he asked, Fan Manor's drought. How long has it been? It's hard to explain in a few words. Fan Yunxiao sighed. He found a place to sit down and tirelessly explained the cause of the matter. It turned out that Fan Manor used to be a place with plenty of food. Although it was inconvenient to move around in the surrounding 10 li, the weather was good and there weren't any special disasters. However, 10 years ago, the weather began to change. Now and then there would be floods and droughts. It was no longer the same weather as before. Last year, it was even more serious. There wasn't even a drop of rain. Fan Manor's old folks didn't even have a harvest. They even had to take out the seeds they had stored for many years to eat. Fan Nong, whom Xiaohua first saw, could only rely on the water from the well on the mountain to barely preserve some seedlings of rice. Moreover, according to Fan Yunxiao, there was a cultivation sect near Yu City called the Misty Clouds sect. They once came to Fan Manor and said that as long as the people of Fan Manor paid a certain amount of spirit stones every year, they could guarantee that there would be rain in Fan Manor's terraced fields. However, Fan Manor's secular people didn't have any spirit stones. After pleading to no avail and taking out gold and silver, the Misty Clouds sect's cultivators left. What made Xiaohua most angry was that a month ago, the Misty Clouds sect's cultivators came once. Even though they saw Fan Manor's miserable state, they still didn't show any expression. They coldly looked at them for a few times, and didn't even say a word before flying away. It was precisely because of this that Qianshi looked at Xiaohua with such cold eyes. Because in her heart, all cultivators were cold and indifferent, treating them as if they were nothing. Misty Cloud sect? Xiaohua slightly frowned. He didn't seem to have heard of this Ming country's cultivation sect from the cultivators. It should be a small sect, but they could actually make rain. They could do something that Xiaohua, a gold core cultivator, couldn't do. Could it be they were swindled? Xiaohua stroked his chin and frowned as he pondered. But thinking about it, even if the Misty Cloud sect's disciples wanted to swindle, there was no need to swindle these secular people. Elder Fan, Xiaohua asked, this Misty Cloud sect's cultivators can really make rain? Have you seen it before? This old man doesn't have any spirit stones here, so naturally I haven't seen it before. Fan Yunxiao said with sweat. However, I've heard from people far away that when the Misty Cloud sect's immortals waved their hands, countless clouds would fly out from their sleeves. The clouds could cover the entire mountain. I know that when the immortals blow, the clouds can make rain. And this Xiao understands. Xiaohua slightly nodded and transmitted his voice to Shui. This way, the Misty Cloud sect must have a magic treasure that can move clouds and make rain. The Misty Cloud sect's disciples are guarding this gift from the heavens, but they don't favor the living beings. Then this husband will go and take that magic treasure and make rain for the living beings. Usually, Xiaohua was silent and sometimes even deliberately hid his strength and did not reveal it. But at this time, for the sake of irrelevant people, he was actually full of lofty sentiments. Shueishue's eyes unconsciously lit up. She couldn't help but deepen her admiration for her sweetheart. This concubine will wait here. Shueishue knew that she would only cause trouble if she went, so she said with a smile, "Wait for my husband's triumphant return." "Indefinitely," Xiaohua said with a smile. "This husband will definitely step on 7-colored auspicious clouds and return with rain and dew." Seeing Xiaohua's relaxed appearance, Shueishue's heart also relaxed. She knew that Xiaohua was very confident in himself. Moreover, when she thought of the lightning escape technique that Xiaohua revealed yesterday, she saw that it was much faster than her master Sun Ming. Even if he couldn't succeed, escaping with his life wouldn't be a problem. Shueishue only said, "Be careful, my husband," before sending Xiaohua away. When Xiaohua flew out of Yu City, his face showed a dignified expression. He had inquired clearly in Yu City. The Misty Cloud sect was indeed not a big sect, but a small sect on the Green Cloud Mountain far away from Yu City. However, the sect master of this small sect was not simple. He was a late-stage Foundation establishment realm cultivator. However, this was not the key point that Xiaohua was worried about. The Misty Cloud sect was slightly different from other sections. They had inherited the ancient talisman crafting technique. It was said that the sect could refine extremely powerful talismans. Of course, this was only a rumor because the sect master of the Misty Cloud sect, Yintingyu, was only a late-stage Foundation establishment realm cultivator. No matter how powerful his talisman crafting technique was, he was not Xiaohua's opponent. However, the problem was that Xiaohua wanted to find out the secret of the Misty Cloud sect's technique, so he had to face the entire Misty Cloud sect. Xiaohua couldn't really treat the cultivators as nothing and flatten the Misty Cloud sect. Chapter 2085. Xiaohua naturally had a plan to appease them. He wanted to use spirit stones and other things to solve the problem. However, the information he heard made him nervous. Because Misty Cloud sect's talisman-making technique was passed down from the distant past era, it had more history than Mount Jinhua's Fu clan, and even the Qiqiao sect that Xiaohua knew of. Xiaohua only knew that right now, the Misty Cloud sect was the same as the Fu family of Jinhua Mountain. They relied on selling yellow talismans and making simple spirit talismans to maintain the sect's livelihood. That technique of moving clouds and summoning rain was the unique skill that the Misty Cloud sect relied on to survive. Misty Cloud sect wouldn't give up so easily. In fact, it was funny. Although Xiaohua didn't inquire too clearly about the cloud summoning rain technique that Fan Yinxiao and the others talked about, it seemed similar to Misty Cloud sect's yellow talisman called Condensing Rain Talisman. This condensing rain talisman could condense water-type spiritual energy within a certain range according to a cultivator's magic power. Its offensive power couldn't even compare to icicle talisman. This kind of talisman, which was worthless in the eyes of cultivators, actually became Misty Cloud sect's tool to snatch food from the nearby secular world. Of course, occasionally, cultivators would also ask Misty Cloud sect's disciples to summon rain and clouds near their own immortals' caves to maintain the scenery. At this time, there were several aura refining disciples on duty on Mount Jinhua. A young disciple muttered, "Senior Marshal Brother, outsiders won't come to our Mount Jinhua. Why are we on duty? It's better to take the condensing rain talisman out for a walk. Maybe we can even earn 1 or 2 spirit stones." "Humph. You only know how to earn spirit stones." Another slightly older disciple scolded. The day before yesterday, 6th junior marshal brother sneaked out. It just so happened that Mount Jinhua's Fu clan came to visit, leaving no one to guard our Misty Cloud sect's gate. We let a cultivator clan from the country of Shi laugh at us. It really made sect head lose face. Sect head just punished 6th junior marshal brother. It's only been a few days and you're already itching for a beating? Senior marshal brother, isn't this just a coincidence? That disciple smiled apologetically and said, "I haven't seen a bird fly over here for half a month. Who knew that someone would come that day? After saying that, that disciple curled his lips and said, "That's right. It's just a cultivator clan, but they actually came to invite our Mount Jinhua for some private matter." The sect leader had no choice. The senior brother shook his head and said, "According to the martial uncles, Fu Yunbua from the Golden Mount Hua used to be good friends with the sect leader. Moreover, they have a very deep relationship. Even if the sect leader doesn't go, he will send 2 senior brothers or even martial uncles." Do you know if they brought enough spirit stones?" That disciple nodded and said, "The sect leader hasn't given out any spirit stones for a few months. This kid's medicinal pills have already run out." I'm afraid not." The senior brother shook his head. "Otherwise, a few martial uncles would have followed them. Since he's still on the mountain and hasn't left, it means that he hasn't reached an agreement yet." "Hee, senior brother, I heard that 6th senior brother went to Mount Shiming the day before yesterday and bought a few Peiyuan pill in Yu City with 2 spirit stones. TSK, he is really lucky." Shiming Shan. That rich man with the surname Chun. That senior brother also smacked his lips and said, "His family has a lot of farmland. 2 spirit stones is already a cheap price. Look, senior brother, there's another guest." The young disciple's eyes were sharp. He had already seen Xiaohua flying over from afar and hurriedly shouted, "It's really him." That senior brother turned his head and looked, then said curiously, "What's going on with our Misty Cloud sect these days? Why do we have guests one after another? Oh, this cultivator is actually a foundation establishment senior. Hurry." Xiaohua's flying speed was very fast. Under that senior brother's hurried urging, Xiaohua had already flown in front of them. Without waiting for Xiaohua to land, several disciples stepped forward and bowed. "Junior greets senior. May I know why senior has come to our Misty Cloud sect?" "I, Xiaohua, have come to pay a visit to your sect's sect leader Yin Tingyu Yun." Xiaohua came with a smile and said warmly, "Senior Xiao, please wait a moment. Junior will send a message." The Misty Cloud sect disciple quickly took out a messaging talisman and said a few words before sending it in. In a moment, a vigorous figure flew over. It was a foundation establishment middle-stage cultivator. That cultivator's cheeks were thin and long, his skin was slightly pale, and his eyes were slightly narrowed. He seemed to be somewhat sleepy. "I, Yin Qinglai, greets fellow Daoist Xiao." That cultivator landed on the ground and also politely cupped his hands in greeting. "I, Xiaohua, have some private matters to discuss with your sect's sect leader Yin. Fellow Daoist Yin, please lead the way." Xiaohua returned the greeting and still called himself Xiaohua. He didn't mention his sect, which clearly meant that this trip had nothing to do with his sect. Seeing Xiaohua's calm appearance, Yin Qinglai slightly frowned. However, since Xiaohua didn't mention his sect, he could only smile and say, "Fellow Daoist Xiao, please follow I." "Thank you for your trouble." After Xiaohua finished speaking, he flew behind Yin Qinglai and entered Green Cloud Mountain. Along the way, Xiaohua slightly released his divine sense and gradually came to a decision in his heart. He saw that although Green Cloud Mountain also had layers of restrictions, it was very obvious that these restrictions had long been worn out. Many places were full of flaws and looked like they hadn't been repaired for a long time. Compared to Tianmen Mountain's Huang family, it was quite inferior, not to mention the Imperial Thunder sect. After seeing a foothill, he came face to face with an extremely long flight of stairs that went perfectly straight from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain. At the top of the mountain, there was a huge archway towering majestically. "Fellow Daoist Xiao, you can't fly here. I'll have to trouble fellow Daoist to follow I up the mountain." Flying in front of the straight flight of stairs, Yin Qinglia's figure landed and said somewhat proudly, "This is the location of my Misty Cloud sect's ancient restrictions. I have no choice but to do so. Please forgive me." "No matter." Xiaohua also felt a faint suction force on his body. He said with a smile, "The guests will follow the host's wishes. This Xiao will definitely abide by your sect's rules." When Xiaohua walked step by step up the mountain peak, he saw that on top of the huge archway, there were 2 huge rain and dew characters in front of him. Moreover, around the 2 words rain and dew, there were all kinds of raindrop-shaped stripes. At first glance, it looked like some strange talismans. This archway seems to be somewhat similar to Yunwu Mountains, Xiaohua suddenly realized. However, Yin Qinglai ignored him and directly passed under the archway. He simply didn't let Xiaohua see it himself. Xiaohua's divine sense slightly swept over the archway, and then left. After the archway, a huge, dilapidated palace hall appeared in front of Xiaohua. His Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air. Just now, in his divine sense, this palace hall didn't seem particularly huge, nor did it seem particularly mighty. However, after passing through the archway and arriving in front of him, a different kind of scenery actually appeared. It really caused him to be stunned. His previous thoughts of looking down on the Misty Clouds sect immediately disappeared. Fellow Daoist Xiao, please. Yin Qinglai turned his head and saw Xiaohua's shock. He was slightly proud as he entered the main hall first. Chapter 2086. Sure enough, the inside of the main hall was just like how it looked from the outside. It was incomparably big. Pillars that several people couldn't carry supported the roof of the hall. On top of a tall platform, there was a huge stone chair. At this time, a cultivator who wasn't very tall sat on the stone chair. This cultivator's height was that of an ordinary person. If it was anywhere else, it wouldn't be considered much. However, when he sat on the stone chair, he appeared very short. He even looked like a child playing around. Looking at the cultivator's appearance, his facial features were regular, his eyes were spirited, and an awe-inspiring aura of righteousness rushed out. "I, Xiaohua, greet Sect Master Yun." Xiaohua walked to the bottom of the high platform. Without waiting for Yin Qinglai to speak, Xiaohua's gaze swept across the cultivator on the stone chair, and the 3 foundation establishment cultivators on the high platform. He hurriedly bowed and greeted. The one on the stone chair was naturally Yin Tingyu. He waved his hand rather arrogantly and didn't really return the greeting. "Fellow Daoist Xiao, please rise." Xiaohua slightly frowned and muttered in his heart. "Fellow Daoist Xiao," Yin Tingyu said with a smile. "Fellow Daoist didn't say your origin. This sect master really can't see through fellow Daoist's origin. May I know why fellow Daoist has come to my Misty Cloud sect?" "He," Xiaohua explained. "This Xiao came here for my own personal matter. It has nothing to do with the sect, so I wanted to hide my origin. I hope Sect Master Yin can understand." Yin Tingyu nodded and quietly listened to Xiaohua's explanation. This Xiao heard that Misty Cloud sect has a kind of cloud and rain technique. "I wonder if it's true?" Xiaohua said straightforwardly. "Oh, fellow Daoist, what do you mean?" Yin Tingyu's face revealed a strange smile. He glanced at the 3 disciples around him and asked. Xiaohua thought for a moment, and then told him what he had encountered. He then said sincerely, "The secular people of Fanzhuang really have no way out. This is why I have come to your honorable sect. I want to ask your honorable sect's disciples to send rain to dispel their drought." "Oh, so it's like that." Hearing Xiaohua's story, Yin Tingyu seemed to be relieved. He said with a smile, "Fellow Daoist Xiao didn't mention some cloud and rain technique, but my Misty Cloud sect's condensing rain talisman. Moreover, didn't fellow Daoist Xiao say it? Misty Cloud sect's disciples who saw the drought have already gone to Fanzhuang? It's just that they don't have any spirit stones. So how are they going to get us to help them? My Imperial Thunder sect's condensing rain talisman is not easy to make, and it also costs spirit stones. Can't fellow Daoist Xiao see? My Misty Cloud sect is now so poor that we can't even repair the main hall of the sect. If we don't rely on these yellow talismans to obtain some spirit stones, how will we survive? Although spirit stones are important, yellow talismans are rare, and your sect's palace must be repaired," Xiaohua said with a smile. "But aren't human lives more important than these?" "Is human life important?" Yin Tingyu asked with a smile. "Is that so?" "Of course," Xiaohua said decisively. "But I don't think the lives of those secular people are important. After all, they have nothing to do with me." The corners of Yin Tingyu's mouth curled up, and he unexpectedly said, "Whether or not he is important, I am not willing to discuss with fellow Daoist Xiao. Even if he is incomparably important, without spirit stones, My Misty Cloud sect will not sell a single condensing rain talisman. Looking at Yun Tingyu's upright facial features and upright temperament, Xiaohua couldn't help but laugh. Isn't this the legendary sanctimonious? Forget it, Xiaohua waved his hand and said. I am not here to discuss with fellow Taoist Yin whether or not the lives of secular people are important. Since your sect uses the condensing rain talisman, I will buy some condensing rain talismans. And wouldn't fellow Taoist Xiao have said so earlier? Yin Tingyu said with a smile. Fellow Taoist Yin, please give me 100 condensing rain talismans. Xiaohua nodded. Oh, 100? Yin Tingyu frowned. From what fellow Taoist Xiao said, Fanzhuang only has a few mountains. 5 condensing rain talismans for each mountain would be enough. Why does fellow Taoist want so many? Why would a businessman be afraid of others buying too many? Xiaohua said with a smile. Hee, I am just casually asking. Yin Tingyu said with a smile to Yun Qingjin. Go get 100 high-grade condensing rain talismans. High-grade? Yun Qingjin was stunned, but before he could hesitate, Yin Tingyu continued. It is the 100 high-grade condensing rain talismans that I personally refined yesterday. Personally refined, and high-grade were emphasized. Yes, disciple understands. Yin Qingjin came to his senses and left with a smile. Xiaohua saw and heard clearly, and he sneered in his heart. Fellow Taoist Xiao is from Fanzhuang? Yin Tingyu said with a smile. No, I have nothing to do with Fanzhuang. Oh, that's strange. Yin Tingyu said strangely, since fellow Taoist Xiao has nothing to do with Fanzhuang, why did you spend so many spirit stones to help them? Nothing, Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and said. I just can't stand watching someone die, so I had to do it myself. So fellow Taoist Xiao's other yellow talismans are also used by other places? Yin Tingyu didn't seem ashamed and asked with a smile. Yes, fellow Taoist Yin is right. Xiaohua nodded. Oh, Yin Tingyu looked at Xiaohua thoughtfully. After a moment he said with a smile. As far as I know, the farmers near Yu City are suffering from drought. It is the same near Qi City. It seems that the whole Ming country is suffering from drought. Fellow Taoist Zhao's 100 yellow talismans. I'm afraid they are just a drop in the bucket. Xiaohua rolled his eyes and said with a smile. I also think so. What is Sect Master Yun's plan? At this time, Yin Qingjin came back with a stack of yellow talismans in his hand. Well, fellow Taoist Xiao, take these condensing rain talismans. Yin Tingyu pointed with his finger. One condensing rain talisman is a high-grade spirit stone. These 100 condensing rain talismans are 100 high-grade spirit stones. Ah? Not only was Xiaohua surprised, but Yin Qingjin's eyes also flashed with a strange color. Xiaohua said with a gloomy face, Sect Master Yin, a high-grade fireball talisman is only a mid-grade spirit stone, right? Your condensing rain talisman is only a high-grade spirit stone? Ha ha ha, Yin Tingyu said with a smile. Fellow Taoist Xiao, do you know what is called rare things are precious? In the entire Dawn Rain continent, who doesn't know how to refine a fireball talisman? But what about this condensing rain talisman? This sect master knows that other than my Misty Cloud sect, no one else knows how to refine it. This Xiaohua's face showed hesitation. It wasn't that he didn't have spirit stones, but how could he feel comfortable exchanging them for trash condensing rain talismans like this? After thinking for a moment, under the gaze of Yin Tingyu and the others, Xiaohua clenched his teeth and said, Okay, since it's like this Xiao can only do this. Seeing that Xiaohua was about to take out spirit stones, Yin Tingyu's eyes lit up. He waved his hand and said, Actually, fellow Taoist Xiao, this sect master has another idea. I don't know if fellow Taoist is willing to listen? Oh, there is another way? Xiaohua said with a happy face. This Xiao is all ears. Well, fellow Taoist Xiao, please step up and talk. Yin Tingyu pointed with a smile. Xiaohua looked and stepped up to the high platform. He stood at the edge of the high platform and said, Sect Master Yin, please speak. Actually, since fellow Taoist has come to my Misty Cloud sect, you must know something. Yin Tingyu saw Xiaohua stand still and said sincerely, This condensing rain talisman is of little value in my Ming country's cultivation world, so Sect Master Yin also knows. Xiao Hua sneered. Fellow Taoist Xiao, you don't know the cost of firewood. Yin Tingyu waved his hand. My Misty Cloud sect is such a big sect, and this old man is the sole leader. If I don't have a source of spirit stones, how can this old man be the sect master? Yes, this Xiao knows. Xiao Hua nodded. Sect Master Yin, please explain. Good. Fellow Taoist Xiao is indeed a straightforward person. Yin Tingyu clapped his hands and said, this Yin thinks that instead of spending spirit stones to buy my Misty Cloud sect's condensing rain talisman, why not, directly buy the refining method of the condensing rain talisman? Ah? As soon as Yin Tingyu said this, the entire hall became silent. Even Yin Qinglai and the others were dumbfounded. Great! Unexpectedly, after Xiao Hua heard this, he beamed with joy and said, if Sect Master Yin has this idea, it is exactly what I want. I wonder what price this Xiao is willing to pay. Sect Master Yin Qinglai said anxiously, but before he could speak, Yin Tingyu coldly snorted. This Sect Master is speaking, there is no reason for you to speak. Yes, Yin Qinglai gritted his teeth and lowered his head in silence. What my Misty Cloud sect lacks is spirit stones. If fellow Taoist Xiao can take out enough spirit stones, this talisman refining method, fellow Taoist can take it. Yin Tingyu said in a low voice. However, fellow Taoist Xiao must make a heart oath that you can only refine it by yourself and absolutely cannot pass it to others. Of course. This Xiao still knows. Xiao Hua nodded. But I don't know the price. Yin Tingyu's face revealed a smile, squinted his eyes, and transmitted a number to Xiao Hua. Ah? So much? Xiao Hua's expression suddenly changed. Hee, fellow Taoist Xiao. Yin Tingyu laughed. This number is a bit high, but don't you think it is much more cost-effective than buying the condensing rain talisman? Moreover, if the condensing rain talisman is not that useful, how could my Misty Cloud sect leak out the talisman refining method? Xiao Hua lowered his head and pondered, while Yin Tingyu stared at Xiao Hua's face, seemingly expecting something. All right. After a long while, Xiao Hua raised his head and said, since fellow Taoist Yin has such sincerity, this Xiao will give Misty Cloud sect a few more spirit stones. Saying this, Xiao Hua lifted his hand and untied a storage pouch from his waist. Great! Yin Tingyu laughed and clapped. Sure enough, fellow Taoist Xiao is rich and overbearing. This Yin can't think of which cultivation sect in my main country would have such a brainless cultivator like you. You actually dared to reveal your spirit stones in front of a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator. Moreover, you are still in someone else's sect. Saying this, Yin Tingyu patted his forehead, and the pressure of a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator rushed over. It seemed to be suppressing Xiao Hua and probing Xiao Hua's true cultivation. Ha ha ha. Contrary to Yin Tingyu's expectations, Xiao Hua also laughed. His laughter was even more comfortable than Yin Tingyu's. At the same time, he also released his pressure, directly facing Yin Tingyu's pressure. Chapter 2087. Oh. He's clearly in the middle stage of foundation establishment. Has this guy lost his mind? When the two forces collided, Yin Tingyu's heart was even more at ease. He knew that Xiao Hua was indeed in the middle stage of foundation establishment. Then, with a wave of his hand, the torrential rain technique appeared. The abundant water-based heaven and earth spiritual qi around the main hall condensed into hundreds of hailstones that smashed toward Xiao Hua. Each hailstone contained intense spiritual qi. If it smashed into an ordinary cultivator's body, it would be normal for flesh and blood to fly. Xiao Hua withstood Yin Tingyu's pressure. His divine sense swept across the main hall, and a burst of contempt appeared in his eyes. He opened his hands, and a faint purple samadhi true fire with traces of crimson red surged out, instantly forming a wall of fire around Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua himself quickly flew away from where he was standing. At the same time, he waved his hand and dozens of rabbit formation talismans shot towards where Xiao Hua was standing. Samadhi True Fire Yin Tingyu was clearly a knowledgeable person. Seeing Xiao Hua turn the Samadhi True Fire into a wall of fire, which was the nemesis of his water element techniques, he couldn't help but turn pale with fright. You're a disciple of the Changbai sect? Just as Yin Tingyu was shouting, there was a rumbling sound. Hundreds of hailstones smashed onto the wall of fire. Although the momentum was terrifying, the hailstones were all ignited by the Samadhi true fire. They could only intensify the wall of fire, but couldn't break through the defense at all. Ha ha ha, Xiaohua laughed. Is it important where I come from? Yes, it's not important at all, Yin Tingyu said coldly. No matter which sect, even if you're a disciple of the Taiching sect, don't even think about taking one step out of the Misty Clouds sect today. That cold voice really didn't match his handsome facial features. Why aren't you making a move yet? Yin Tingyu slapped his hand and took out a magic treasure that was as green as a lotus leaf from his storage bag. He pointed his finger and countless rays of misty green light poured out from the magic treasure. Yin Qinglian and the others also came to their senses at this time. They each clapped their hands, and a bamboo-like Dharma artifact, a water bottle Dharma artifact, and a watermelon-like Dharma artifact all flew into the air. These Dharma artifacts all emitted green or blue light without exception. Go, the four of them seemed to speak at the same time. Each of them pointed their fingers, and the magic power in their bodies surged. Their magic treasures and artifacts rushed into the air. The magic treasures on the lotus leaves bloomed with a dark green lotus. It absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and spun rapidly. It produced a sharp sound of wind as it rushed towards Xiaohua's head. If a normal cultivator was hit by that lotus, even if their physical body wasn't destroyed, the light protecting their body would definitely be broken. The four people were obviously in perfect coordination. The dark green watermelon magic tool produced ripples of water from all directions, and there was almost a hua-hua sound of water as it pounced towards Xiaohua's legs. The water bottle magic tool poured out a bluish-green misty true water that rushed towards Xiaohua's chest, and that bamboo pole transformed into a row of bluish-green waves that attacked Xiaohua's back. Xiaohua's fingers continuously pointed, and he quickly laid down the simple rabbit formation. He also took the time to raise his hand, and the Samadhi True Fire's wall of fire expanded with a hu sound. Unfortunately, although the Samadhi True Fire's killing power was formidable, under the fierce attacks of the four Dharma artifacts and Dharma artifacts, it was broken one by one. Haha, the Misty Clouds sect can be considered to have some foundation. Seeing the Samadhi True Fire's wall of fire being broken, Xiaohua was not surprised. He waved his hand and took out the Tung Jiao shears. I'll let you all see this Zhao's methods. Xiaohua sneered. He activated his magic power, and a golden light flashed above the entire main hall. Yin Tingyu and the others only felt a cold air flash before their eyes. The golden light, in an inconceivably short amount of time, swept past the four Dharma artifacts. Ah! Yin Qinglian was the first to cry out in alarm. The bluish-green waves formed by his bamboo pole magic tool were instantly cut into two rows by the golden light. Immediately after, the brilliance disappeared, and the bamboo pole revealed its original form in the air. Not only that, but when the bamboo pole fell into the air, it actually staggered slightly. The Tung Jiao shears actually cut the bamboo pole in half. Pu shua, sounds came one after another. The other two Dharma artifacts also revealed their original forms in the air. At the mouth of the water bottle and halfway through the watermelon, deep cracks appeared respectively. Only Yin Tingyu's lotus leaf magic tool was in a slightly better state. The lotus leaf was shattered by the Tung Jiao shears. The lotus leaf trembled, and was only pushed back a few feet in the air. See, Yin Tingyu couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The shock in his eyes appeared once again. He looked at Xiaohua in disbelief. He really couldn't imagine how this foundation establishment middle-stage cultivator could have such astonishing strength. Give me your life. Xiaohua sneered. He waved his hand again. Where his magic power surged, the Tung Jiao shears once again flashed with golden light, and pounced towards Yin Tingyu. Hee. Yin Tingyu hurriedly pointed his finger at the Dharma artifact. At the same time, lotus flowers appeared one after another from the Dharma artifact. He hurriedly opened his hand slightly, and took out a Dharma artifact from his storage bag. His other hand hurriedly formed a Dharma artifact, and pointed at the center of the Dharma artifact. Shua. Kung with a roar, the Tung Jiao shears actually cut all the lotus flowers in half. Moreover, it directly hit the body of the Dharma artifact. Pooh! As cracks appeared on the Dharma artifact, Yintingyu also suffered a backlash from the Dharma artifact and spat out a mouthful of blood. Yintingyu's mouthful of blood was spat on the Dharma artifact. The Dharma artifact that had already bloomed with green threads instantly changed again. The green threads gathered together and condensed into green beads. Like tadpoles, they actually made a sound and hit the air around Xiaohua. Hua hua hua. Within one zhang of Xiaohua, a ripple appeared in the air. Countless fist-sized raindrops trembled rapidly and flashed with inexplicable spiritual energy fluctuations, rushing toward Xiaohua. The raindrops were extremely powerful. The Samadhi true fire actually couldn't burn them. The entire wall of fire was like a layer of nothingness, as it was broken by the raindrops. Xiaohua couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice, "Hee, since you've entered my Misty Cloud Sect's true water array, I'd like to see what kind of ability you have." Yintingyu saw that the Dharma artifact was effective and couldn't help but sneer again. "You think there won't be a Dharma artifact in a different place? I'm just setting up a Dharma artifact." "Is that so?" Xiaohua exclaimed at first, but he didn't panic. While sneering, he slightly grasped with his left hand. The Dharma artifact gushed out from his 5 fingers, and the Dharma artifact was activated. Following that, a burst of white brilliance appeared and enveloped Xiaohua. The raindrops formed by the true water hit the brilliance. Pung pung pung. With a series of sounds, the brilliance of the Dharma artifact flashed one after another. But flashing was flashing. The brilliance was actually incomparably tough. It was simply impossible to break through. "Do you think that this young master moved just to hide?" Xiaohua mocked. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.